Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of epic racing action in the one and only League Zero Formula Series Season 17 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing and proudly presented by none other than INCA Salsa. After the absolute heroics and drama of round number 2 last time out at the Miami International Autodrome, we have made our way southward from the US of A to Brazil for what is arguably perhaps the beating heart of open wheel racing in South America. Of course, it is none other than the Interlagos Grand Prix circuit, known in full as the Autódromo José Carlos Pace in reference to the infamous home hero. It is a circuit that has been the scene of many a title clincher over its extensive history. Where it be the infamous Is That Glock moment, Jenson Button taking his one and only Formula 1 title in 2009, alternatively some of the home heroics of the likes of none other than Ayrton Senna, who only took his one and only win here in Brazil all the way back on his 7th attempt at trying with only 6th gear available to him. This is a circuit that keeps everybody guessing from lights out to checkered flag. And for our drivers today, as they make the way around it in round number 3 of the championship, hopefully it's going to keep us guessing as to which ones of them will be able to lead the way here in Brazil, knowing the fact that this is a circuit that doesn't hold back when it comes to the strain it puts on drivers. In the fact, as they make the way around their 2.67 mile host venue, they'll find it's anti-clockwise compared to where most circuits are clockwise, and that leans onto the other side of the body, and it already puts a significant strain on the driver. But then it's into the fact that this circuit weaves and winds its way through the local hilly terrain, and what you have around here is a circuit that's both punishing to car and driver alike, and that's why it's absolutely loved by spectators and drivers year in, year out. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on YouTube, and this production means brought to you by Paul Walsh Productions. Go to youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP and you'll be able to tune in. And as we come into this round, as always, it's another post-round broadcast. This broadcast itself is not live. The racing you're actually seeing is not live. It has been recorded from the racing that actually occurred on Thursday, the 22nd of January 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Saturday, the 24th of January. And therefore, we do not know what unfolds over the course of the practice session, which is currently starting to wind down, nor the upcoming qualifying session or our 2 races on the schedule, and it's as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls at home as it will be for us here in the Cawte booth. In the Cawte booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll bring you all your race action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season. And with regards to our schedule for tonight, and times in Eastern Standard Time, that's EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, as we can see in approximately what will be 13 minutes time, we make our way out onto the circuit for our 15-minute qualifying session, where our drivers trying to go for glory there, and indeed, qualifying could be absolutely vital to success today. But if not, they have 2 races to try and make up the ground, the first of which is our 10-lap sprint race, due to get underway at 9:30 this evening, after which we'll be taking a brief breather before returning at just after what will be 9:45 to see our drivers head to the grid for our extended 30-lap feature race. And indeed, after what was an absolutely incredible round of racing in Miami a week ago, well, we have got a round today that could definitely see the championships come one way or the other. But in fact, as we make our way into this round, let's give you a recap of the story so far and what is still lying in wait. Because as we can see, we are now 3 rounds in on our 9-round calendar. Come the end of today, we have completed a third of the championship, and after what will be 33% complete, I can tell you one thing, it's going to feel as though there's plenty more pages to be turned in the story of Season 17. Round number 1 opened up at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit in Australia, and there we got to see on the 8th of January, plenty of battles up and down the field, but of course, what was a bit of a challenging day for none other than championship leader Finley Fitzsimmons, whereby it all seems to be going his way based on qualifying and the sprint race, but suddenly in the feature race, it all went backwards. One major incident in the run down towards turn number 1. However, move forward a week to last time out at the Miami International Autodrome on the 15th of January, and Finley Fitzsimmons was able to make it the perfect day in the office, with pole position plus also the wins in both races. However, he did not just walk away with the wins, it should be said, because we did have a return to the grid of Jaden Calloway from Squid Gang Racing, and Calloway kept Fitzsimmons honest every step of the way, particularly in the sprint race. But with the safety car restart in the feature race, what we did see that was Fitzsimmons was able to open up the gap, and Calloway didn't have a response there over the longer duration. However, it was not just about the heroics of our championship leader, but also we got to see some epic racing further down the order, and perhaps none more so than one of the home heroes, and indeed a driver who got one of the Driver of the Day nominations, and it was none other than Craig Brick, who in the end was able to bring home his maiden podium in the feature race, avoiding all the drama and making sure that Leo Delmas was not able to catch him in the late stage of the race that was really coming down to minor margins, with Delmas in the end pushing too hard out the final major corner and going for a spin, as Craig Brick will feel as though he took his personal win. But now we're here for round number 3. And in Brazil, what exactly is going to unfold here? Well, that's what we need to find out in preparation for when we make our way back northwards to North America for the US state of Georgia. And of course, next time out, it'll be the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta on the 29th of January. But in terms of our championship standings then, we've given you the quick summary of exactly who took all the glory last time out, but there was more to it than that, particularly all the major incidents we did see, and we'll talk more about those and how they've affected today when we get ready to go to qualifying. But as for our standings, here how they stand in the Drivers' Championship top 15 after our first 2 rounds. And as we can see, Finley Fitzsimmons has moved to the top now with 3 wins out of 4 and on 53 points. The idea is here he's going to look to try and expedite that score as quickly as he can today. However, Delmas and Elliot Cawte, the 2 men behind him, they'll be the ones who'll be looking to try and bounce back as soon as possible, given the fact that Delmas, unfortunately, was caught up in a major incident in the opening race at Miami, of which he was adjudged to have been the one who caused the incident with that lunge into turn 1, and therefore it does mean he has a qualifying ban coming into this round. And Elliot caught the same, unfortunately, in what was the feature race. A turn 1 instant caught him out, and therefore it does mean he's now got to try and find a way to make his way forward. Because whilst it worked out in the sprint, it didn't work out at the feature, and he has picked up a qualifying ban coming into this round. So therefore, for Fitzsimmons, this arguably could be seen to be a bit of an open goal opportunity. However, you never say it's so, because Interlagos always keeps us guessing, as we mentioned only moments ago. Craig Brick has moved into 4th place after his brilliant podium finish, his first podium of what perhaps will be many this season. He's on 35 points, 4 ahead of Jaden Calloway, and what may have been his debut round for the season, not in his history of the series, but I'll tell you one thing, having missed the opening round, Jaden Calloway has not missed a trick. His pace is definitely still with him, he's moved to 31 points immediately. He's ahead of Fabian Sanchez by a single point, with Sanchez seemingly having a very difficult day in the office last time out, as it was also for Jace Mayer with a bit of an uphill struggle, but Antonio Bianchi meanwhile starting to build some momentum as he's moved into 8th ahead of Shahi Zahair, with James Turnbull and Nick Peterson completing your top 10 through to 11. And from the best of the rest driver there on 11 points, we then do have Demont Dotson, head of Elliot Rolls, Shade Prophet and Austin Thomas. Now, outside that top 15 for the 4 points of Thomas, we then do see it is 3 points to Jack Mundy, ahead of Cameron Nix, with Xavier Zainav the last drives with points to their name. And then on 0 points at the moment, we've got Ricardo Spino, Renison Lowe, Gareth McAllister, Sergi Porok, Francisco Sosa, John Stumbar, also Ryan Tebow. And then on negative points, we do see Robert Nobles, Catherine Sweat, who enjoyed a good run last time out on the feature race at what was the Miami International Autodrome and starting to move away from those negative points. And also we do see there Carlos Balanas, and on the lowest number of points there, -10, Arturo Mayorga, due to earlier incidents in the season. But as we come to the Teams Championship, well, the story here is one where MSR Purple have now taken the reins at the top. And do keep in mind, of course, that the defending champions are looking to try and run away as quickly as they can. It's not going to be easy, no doubt about it. However, with a 30-point gap to INCA X51C, right now they'll feel as though that whilst they are in control, INCA X51C are going to pose a threat, because that team has leapt all the way into 2nd place, ahead of DDK Racing and Rodent Racing, to name a couple of teams. And DDK Racing only 2 points behind, with Rodent Racing a further point distant. So therefore, the big focus point is going to be, who is it going to be about? Will it be the battle for the lead of the Teams Championship here in Brazil, or will it be the battle for 2nd place and the right to chase down the leaders? Well, either way, it's going to keep us entertained, no doubt about it. And that's before you consider the other teams which are chasing the top 5 down, including 5th place team INCA Salsa Racing on 35 points, only 4 ahead of Squid Gang Racing, who have now fully arrived on the scene as of this round, because new on the grid tonight, you'll see him, albeit he's not a new face, he's a 2-time champion, highly decorated driver in this series history. It's none other than Adam Merchant who makes his way back to the grid as the 2nd member of Squid Gang Racing, and therefore Callaway and Merchant, well, when they're not fighting each other, they'll be working together to fight for the team's championship glory. They're 4 points ahead of Arrive and Drive Racing, who've slightly fallen, but still on the pace, and then we do have a sizable gap to the rest of the teams here, including Raccoon GP, head of DDK XTH Jordan, and that is Shade Prophet, who's changed from privateer to the official team, and I suspect we are going to see him bolstered later on in the season with some new faces. He's on 6 points ahead of Formula American Racing Team, who are only behind based on result count back in 10th place, and then we do have INCA Salsa Verde with the last of the points they're on to in 11th. Yet score any points, it's INCA Queso, MSR Green, who will be absolutely livid at the fact they've yet scored any points this season, given the way results have gone. It's not been their lucky season so far. They're head of Team Boat, a new team, a set of privateers have joined together. We'll talk more about that shortly. And we do have on -10 points INCA Chips due to earlier incidents this season. But coming from the story from into this round to the present time, let's talk a little bit about our circuit on which we are going to dine. And as we can see, it is the Autódromo José Carlos Pace's Grand Prix layout. Now known more simply as the Interlagos circuit, where it takes its name from the fact that this circuit is located in the neighbourhood of Interlagos of São Paulo city, the capital city of Brazil. And well, that explains a bit of a history as to why it has the name of Interlagos. But as the drivers get ready to race around the circuit that's situated between the two lakes, which is what Interlagos translates to in English, our drivers will find that this 2.67 mile circuit is one that every major fan of open wheel racing, or indeed any form of road racing, will have pinned up on their wall. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for the brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. And we'll see these 15 corners, many of them household names, and as our drivers roar the way across the start-finish line straight, they'll come down towards the centre S to turns 1 and 2. Named after Ayrton Senna, they'll find they have to sweep the way through the left into right before they then come through the Curva del Sol at turn number 3. Flat out there with the amount of downforce these Super Formula machines have, and it'll be flat out all the way down the Reto Aposta straight, while the major overtaking zones where we'll see plenty of use of the push to pass button for them to go hard onto the brakes in towards turns 4 and 5. As they make the way downhill through turn number 4 and off camber corner, which normally does see drivers run wide, well, they'll make the way out of the Descida del Lago and make the way all the way up towards turns 5, 6 and then 7. We're going through the uphill right hander there of Ferradura into Curva de Laranjia. They'll make the way off camber through the double right before they go hard on the brakes at the hairpin at turn number 8. One of the lower speed corners, and in the middle sector we'll see the average apex speed suddenly descend at an incredible rate as they then make the way through Pinheiro corner at turn number 9, where there's too wide, plenty of space. However, it's not a place to go too wide normally, because those on the outside, they'll find themselves at risk of falling onto the marbles and with it going off track. But keep it on track, and they'll then make their way into the Bico de Pato hairpin at turn number 10, the lowest speed corner, where we can see plenty of battles under braking, particularly some big dives and even some free wides. But should they get it right, they'll come back on themselves through Magulo corner at turn number 11, the downhill fast left-hander, where it's about just tapping the apex curb and making sure to fully commit to the throttle, and then into the braking zone for Juncal corner they go at turn number 12. From that point onwards, it's uphill all the way as they roar the way flat out up the hill through the Kinka 13, through Subida boxes of turn number 14, and it's flat out through the curve straight to turn 15 to complete lap and do it all over again. And again, with that extended run from turn 12 to turn number 1, we can expect that to set up plenty of overtaking opportunities and perhaps even create a drag race to the finish line on the final lap. Now for the uninitiated, a quick reminder of the rules before we go racing. In terms of car setup, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every round of racing by the League Zero administration team. Car fuel loads have been restricted to 40%, and as for qualifying, the session shall be open, which means all the drivers will be out on circuit for the full 15 minutes, whereby they can choose to come and go as they please. They have an unlimited number of laps. There's just one caveat: they must set their lap time before the end of the 15 minutes. As soon as that clock goes to 0, we end the qualifying session there. There is no overtime, and therefore it means if a driver is on a lap and the clock goes to 0, they're immediately taken back to the pits. They are not allowed to finish the lap. They've got to get the job done within the 15 minutes, which always puts a bit of mental pressure on the drivers. Now, race-wise, they shall commence via a standing start, as is the tradition of the League Zero Formula Series, where a drive-through penalty being awarded at 17 instant points should our drivers get to that point. And as for how we set the grid for the feature race, if we set the grid based on qualifying for the sprint, well, in the feature race, it will be set based on the finishing positions of said sprint race. However, we invert the top 6 finishing positions. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Well, what it means is the winner of the sprint, they start in 6th place for the purposes of the feature race, and we continue that inversion down to the 6th place finisher, who then starts on pole for the feature race, and those who finish 7th and downwards, you guessed it right, they start exactly where they finished in the sprint race for the purposes of the feature. And keep in mind, there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in either of the races. However, given the fuel tank restrictions, we normally do expect there to be at least one pit stop for fuel and also a tyre change in the feature race. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough rules and regulations recapped, as well as the story coming into this round. So let's make our way back to circuit side. And as we do, well, this practice session is not too far away from its closure. And right now, well, the fastest driver out there is Finley Fitzsimmons. He is 4.5 tenths faster compared to Elliot Cawte. However, practice is one thing, qualifying is another story entirely, and I wouldn't be surprised here if Elliot Cawte is perhaps holding a little bit back, as is Adam Merchant, who on his return to the grid is already in the 3rd fastest slot at the moment. Indeed, the deltas between quite a few of these lap times right now are quite surprising, to say the least. That's why I'm not surprised if perhaps we're seeing some drivers running race pace rather than running qualifying pace at the moment, and I suspect it might be a bit of a different story when we do go for 15 minutes of anger only around the corner now. But as Adam Merchant makes one through, it's great to see the 2-time champion back. Indeed, a driver who's been highly decorated over his history of racing in this series. And some would say that he deserves even more titles, but what it does mean is that we now have two of our two-time champions on the grid, with Finley Fitzsimmons being the other, of course. So therefore, that's going to be a bit of a rivalry. And the one-time champion for Elliot Cawte, and of course, keep in mind that Elliot Cawte is your defending champion, where it really is going to be a grid of who's who by the end of the season at this rate. Not that we're complaining. And of course, we do have our four-time champion of Jaden Calloway racing this series as of this season as well. Otherwise, I do double-check our entry list for today. I don't see Calloway sadly making it onto the grid. So it does look as though we have one Squid Gang racing driver in and one out. I wonder if they could only get one car to the circuit today, perhaps due to logistical reasons, but either way, that's the way it's gone. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the practice session is complete, we're all warmed up, and that means it's time for us to go qualifying. But who is going to put it on pole? Let's find out. And so it is into qualifying we go, and as quick as that, 15 minutes begins to tick away. Now, who is going to be the one who can prove that over a single lap at least, they are the master of the Brazilian circuit? Well, as the drivers all make their way out the pit lane, this is a perfect opportunity as the drivers get themselves warmed up to introduce a few new faces that you're going to see on the grid today. Now, of course, we have already mentioned and introduced Adam Merchant, so he needs no further introduction. Now, the man you're looking at right now in the very colourful livery there, indeed a good mixture of green and purple, well, this is none other than Aaron Gussler, who makes his way onto the grid in the number 30 car, and well, he makes his debut today for the INCA Salsa team. In particular, that's the INCA Salsa Verde team. They do have multiple teams INCA Salsa on the grid, but it's great to see Gussler here, and we wish him all the best of luck on his debut as he heads up the hill. Now, we also do have a new team on the grid, and that is in the form of Team Boats. Now, one of the drivers you will already know. You saw him on the grid last time out. It's Renison Lowe. Here he is right now, and hopefully things are going to go swimmingly for him today. And well, as he makes his way out the pit lane there, just getting the tyres nice and easily warmed up, not rushing to get out the pits, and taking his time. I think he wants to make sure he's got a bit of clear track in front of him, so that way he doesn't find a wall of dirty air. We'll talk more about that shortly. But we wish Renison all the best of luck here with his new team today, and he's in the company of a new teammate, and that is in the form of newcomer of Joshua Cronin. Now, where is Cronin out of the circuit? And the answer is, here he is. He's in the sister car, a slightly different livery there, as he makes his way in towards turn number 10. And as he comes on through, I can see the big word sponsor on the side. Oh, goodness me, Josh, keep it steady. Well, as he makes well for Oscar, so I can see the word sponsor on the side, and that reminds me of, I think it was the Marussia car, or the HRT Marussia racing car from Formula 1 back in the 2010s, that did have the massive logo on the side of it, which was quite an innovative advertising trick to say your logo here, or your logo could be here on the side of the car when they were chasing sponsors, of course, as one of the teams that essentially was the equivalent to the Minardi teams of Formula 1. Sadly, we no longer have those on the grid due to the way the financial structure of Formula 1 has changed over the last 15 to 20 years. But I do love the callbacks there to the idea of you could put your logo on the side of the car here, albeit for a paltry sum in Formula 1, or probably the best part of a couple £100,000. But here in League Zero, well, the numbers are not quite like that, or at least as far as I'm aware. But don't take it from me. But as we do see Cronin make his way around, we wish him the best luck on his debut. And we also do have new to the grid today, Matt Strong, and he'll be racing for INCA Salsa Racing, so he partners up with none other than the other members of the team here on the grid, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in the number 18 as he makes his way towards the timeline here to go onto his first flying lap. And we also do have Felipe Ramos, new to the grid here as he slides his way into our camera view. That's coming down through turn number 11 at Magulo Corner. Corner seems to have caught him out there as he will be competing for the Inca Queso team as he tries to get himself back on the road, but it's so difficult to do so. And if you think he's making a complete ham sandwich, it is. He slightly is. However, keep in mind that when he tries to get back on the road, the problem is that you have dirt on the tyres, but also you've got your right-hand side tyres on the tarmac. The left-hand side tyres are still coming off the grass, and if you're a little bit insensitive with the throttle input, that car is going around immediately. These cars, they may only have 2-litre engines with 4 cylinders in them, but my goodness, it's a very lightweight chassis, and add to that the fact the best part of over 500 horsepower coming out these cars when they're at full pelt. That's before you consider the overtake button, which they're not allowed to use in qualifying, and suddenly these cars are an absolute monster to tame. And indeed, anybody racing this series, just to be out there in these machines, it's absolute credit to them for the fact they are looking to tame them, because they are not easy cars. And that's where you do have in Japan, which is where these cars hail from in terms of the Super Formula Series. That's why you have the entry-level Super Formula Lights, which we have previously raced here at League Zero, and then you have these cars, the Super Formula 2023 machines, the Hondas and Toyotas. Well, it's exactly the same car, it's the exact same body shell, it's just who manufactures the engine, whether it's Honda or Toyota, but they have to manufacture it to an exact specification. There is no difference between the cars. They are equal, it just depends on which mark you want to get behind, but the fact is these cars are the best of the best, and arguably Japan's equivalent to Formula 1, or as close as possible to it, particularly with Formula 1 going through regulation changes now for 2026, as we move to a whole new era of aerodynamics. But as we've introduced our newcomers, and indeed we've introduced our new teams on the grid today, well, let's talk a little bit about those qualifying bans. We do have 3 of them. One for Leo Delmas for the lap 1 incident in the sprint race at Miami, one for Elliot Cawte for the lap 1 incident in the feature race at Miami, and also one for Carlos Balanas for being involved in an incident at Miami as well. So therefore, they'll all be starting from the back of the grid. They are all here today, so we look forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do, but they've got the hard work cut out for them. It turns out to pick their way through. But then the question is, how important is qualifying here in Brazil? And the answer, it's an interesting one, because battles here are very easy to make happen. This is a circuit that offers plenty of opportunities to do battle lap after lap. Most of the corners around here you can go too wide, particularly at the likes of turn number 10, as we do see Fabian Sanchez finding what is quite a bit of a traffic jam of cars in front of him, including first up Sergei Perok there, and also he does have one of the MSR green cars for company right in front. However, of course, if he does go for the move, in fact that's Aaron Gessler's car there, let me correct myself, the similarities of the green. But one of the key things here, of course, in qualifying, is he wants to try and get past these two. He's going to have to dive up the inside and make sure they don't lose any time. That's not going to be easy, because remember, in qualifying, it's the lead car. So long as they are on a lap, they are allowed to hold their line. It is the responsibility of the car behind not to interrupt the car in front. And Brock is given the opportunity to set himself a 17.194. And that moves him up to 10th place, with John Stumbar jumping up to 9th, just ahead of him on a 139. In the 17, so it's very close between the two of them, only 55 thousandths. And then Robert Nobles improves here for MSR Green. So right now more and more time is coming from all drives rather quickly here, and well, we've still got plenty of time in this session, but coming back to the main question, you want to try and qualify where possible inside the top 10, just because when the mid-pack starts to fight around here, you can lose a lot of time. A lot of these corners, because of the way they are shaped, they're intentionally designed to encourage overtaking, but of course running too wide through all these bends means you run off the racing line. And over the course of a lap, if you battle through, say, turn 4 all the way through to turn number 8, the sequence that we are seeing Nobles complete at the moment as he comes through 7 in towards 8, that in itself over a lap could cost about half a second to a second, that batting alone. And that's why you want to qualify reasonably well, but there is the ability to move forward here because you do have several straights. Also, you have a lot of corners around here which don't really see the car suffer too much from the dirty air. There are others that do. The middle sector in particular is really known. So from turn 4 all the way through to turn number 11, that's where the dirty air will really affect the car. Whereas the run through the final couple of corners at Jinsao corner here at turn number 12, all the way to the finish line, plus also the run through the centre S's all the way down to turn number 4, that's the opening sector. There, dirty air is not as much of a factor, and in fact you want to be in the air of another car to be able to pick up that slipstream and get as close as possible to the top end speed of 189 miles an hour of these machines to be able to make the overtake. That's with also the consideration of the push to pass or the overtake button. But as we get towards the halfway point of the qualifying session, current fastest driver out there is Finley Fitzsimmons on a 15.433. Of course, all these laps are provisional until we head to the grid, because they do need to be authenticated by the automated iRacing shielding system, which will check all these laps off tracks. And unfortunately, we don't quite have the ability to bring you that data as we go. And therefore, it does mean you might see some surprises. You may see some late shuffling around of the gridding order. But Fitzsimmons right now does seem to be the man to beat. And well, let's do him the courtesy then of jumping on board and seeing how he goes for a flying lap, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way towards the timing line. So down towards turn number 1 he goes, looks to his right and braking out at the marshal's post, down from 6th to 3rd gear, hitting the apex nicely. Now over to left to open up the right-hander at turn number 2, flat out now, in towards the Curva del Sol at turn number 3. Plenty of apex curb, and as he makes his way down the Retro Apostle straight here, already up to in excess of 165 miles an hour, as he looks over to his right-hand side for his brake marker. It's the 100 metre board, but he brakes a bit later, about 80 metres to the corner apex, down to 4th gear, and now keeping the throttle pinned. All the way up the hill he comes, in towards turn number 6, into 5th gear, up to 6th, and now it'll be a dab of the brakes potentially. No, in fact, just lifts off there and lets the car roll into the corner and drops 2 gears as he goes uphill, and now hard onto the brakes here for turn number 8 as the car in front steps aside. I believe that might have been the machine there, Shahi's a hair, and now rolling his way down for a left-hander at turn number 9, and in towards turn number 10, and get ready to go onto the brakes once again. Fitzsimmons comes all the way down to second gear, and as he makes his way out the corner, now over to the right, open up Magulo. A little bit of oversteer there as he came out of turn number 10. The car not quite standing on the rear end. That was the traction. And now into a Junkel corner at turn number 12. And, well, look at this. He's got a bit of a draft heading up the hill. That's going to help out considerably here. And, in fact, Fitzsimmons might have timed this perfectly. He's going to make his way towards the timing line. But what's this going to be as he comes through? Will he pull the car all the way over to the left, thinking he can shorten the run to the timing line? He does for the most part. And Fitzsimmons goes even faster. That's a 15.310. And Fitzsimmons is going to be very grateful there and to whoever opted to give him that tow on, I believe that was the car of Austin Thomas there, and that's running the callback livery to the BMW Petronas team of the Naughty Zero Formula 1 with the Robert Kubica car. And well, as he makes his way on down the straight there, well, I'll tell you one thing, Finley Fitzsimmons is going to have to buy this man a drink afterwards, because he'll be very grateful for the fact he's just been given another 1.5 attempts on what was that run alone to the finish line. Indeed, it was the fastest final sector that anybody's been able to do, but also Fitzsimmons put together a masterful middle sector as well, and Fitzsimmons proven himself to be so quick around here, and that's one of the unique aspects of this open qualifying session, in the fact that if you can find the draft of another car out there, even for a small moment, if you time it right, you can gain massively. If you time it wrong, you can lose out massively. And Adam Burchett right now, I suspect he'll be thinking to himself, okay, that 15.310, that's probably going to be quite a tall order to beat. So long as I qualify in the front row, I should be able to go toe-to-toe with the man who I'm going to be battling with today, or at least that's going to be his thought process, but we will see. Meanwhile, in third, Fabian Sanchez, well, after his brilliant performance at Phillip Island, it was a bit of a down-to-earth moment at Miami last week. However, Sanchez, of course, was able to keep Fitzsimmons honest in the sprint race at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, and it really was down to fine margins and was a spin for him in the end that cost him the ability to chase the win down. However, Sanchez right now 8 tenths off the overall pole time. I don't think that's through lack of trying here. I think that might be the aid of some slipstream, plus also Fitzsimmons has really been, he's just been one step ahead, but Sanchez does find 2.5 tenths down that lap. Well done to him. Moving into third, just that little bit more in the number 8 car. And well, that puts him safe by 2 tenths over Shahi Zahir. Here is the man in the number 10. Very colourful livery on the car, no doubt about it. And as he makes his way into the braking zone, the Sri Lankan driver right now, he's ahead of Antonio Bianchi by only 0.5 tenth. And Elliot Rolls is only 3.5 hundredths behind. We are really talking about hundredths and thousandths here, not tenths at this point. But as we look a bit further down the order, well, Joshua Cronin right now in 21st place, and well, the number 43 driver here still looking for a bit more time out there, but I think he's enjoyed himself all the same as he makes his way up the hill. And well, for Cronin, of course, being a debut round, the aim of the game here really is just to make sure you get to the end of all the sessions today when it's your first time on the grid for a season, or first time on the grid at all. You don't really want to push too hard initially. You want to get yourself established and then get your head into the space, which is, as the season goes on, you can look to move further and further up the order. And it's always tough when you do join a season midway through, even if it is only a couple rounds in, because everyone's started to establish themselves out there as Cronin goes a bit deep out turn number 10, but collects it together. Although there is an exit curb you don't really want to touch out there, because whilst the adage is you use the curbs in dry conditions, of which we're expecting dry conditions all the way through today, you use those curves to open up the road surface. Do keep in mind that unlike the tarmac they race on, unlike the black stuff, the curbs do not offer more grip. They actually offer slightly less grip by comparison, particularly when the curb is not flat, but it's angled upwards, away from the tarmac. That's when you suddenly do see the moments where the car seems to spin, as Cronin there takes a little bit of a leap off the circuit. I believe that's to let a car coming on through by, albeit it will damage the front left suspension rod by doing so. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Cronin does make his way into the pit lane shortly as a result of that, as here comes Arturo Mayorga. Man who always we need to say a big thank you to, because without him and his wonderful work in developing the software that we do have available to us, we'd not be able to bring you the replays that you'll see in the races over the course of this season, as it is due to the software he's developed. And that's why we do have that big thank you, or that courtesy of Arturo Mayorga, because it is due to this man. But right now, he sits in 19th place, and he is 2 tenths of Cameron Nix, and Nix is looking quite quick out there, and he's the other member of the INCA Salsa Verde team, the new team on the grid today. And in that number 11 right now, well, he's currently in 18th. In terms of where he is in relation to his teammate of Gessler, he is only exactly a tenth behind. Well, goodness me, that battle to be inside the top 15, it is very close. When you consider that Ryan Thibault right now is 1.8 seconds off the overall pole time, and then to go to Cameron Nix in 18th, you've only got to add 3 tenths. Indeed, one good lap here could suddenly completely turn things upside down in that hunt for the 15th place spot, and that's how close it is. We might have a bit of runaway leader at the top, top. Although saying that, I've been looking away from the top for a brief moment, and suddenly Adam Merchant's now the pole man. By only 1,000th, mind you. My good lord. And that is tight. That is incredibly tight there. And when it's coming down to thousands, I don't think we're going to be doing a recreation of the 1997 Grand Prix at Jerez, where we did see 3 drivers in the Formula 1 have all the same lap times for pole position. Then it came down to who said it first. But we're getting very close to that era at the moment here in League Zero, because we are seeing some incredibly close times. And I can imagine right now that Jaden Calloway, if he sat there watching this today, he's going to be thinking, why couldn't I be out there as well? Because I think we would have had an absolute monster three-way fight for pole position, let alone what's to come in the races. But right now, Adam Merchant, he has found that time, and for Finley Fitzsimmons, well, does he have a response here? Well, he's going to pick up the toe again of the car, and in fact, he makes way into the pit lane. Fitzsimmons throws in the towel. It's not enough. Even though he had a purple opening sector, Fitzsimmons in the latter half of the lap has not had what he's wanted, and suddenly Adam Merchant may have just claimed this. Fabian Sanchez makes way into the pit lane, so he's not going to improve, but Antonio Bianchi now goes third. He leaves it all to the final lap on a 15.848. That's a brilliant lap there for Bianchi, and that just squeezes him onto the second row. What a leap. Elliot rolls. He's currently 6th. That's not too bad, to be fair, for Rolls, and I think he'll be hoping to himself here that things can move forward a bit as he does improve by what is a couple of hundredths there, but he needs a bit more. The second place man from the championship season last time out, and well, as we look to Sergei Proc, he's not going to complete this lap. He loses it coming out of turn number 4, and he completes the 360 spin in the end, but that is qualified complete, ladies and gentlemen, and what a qualified session it is. Adam Merchant has provisionally taken pole position just ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons. This was definitely not according to the script, according to MSR Purple, but will it need now per the script when we do go racing? Well, it's time to find out, because this is how they line up for our first of our 2 races here in round number 3 of season 17 of the League Zero Formula Series presented by INCA Salsa. Adam Merchant is your pole sitter then, and what a pole position he's been able to claim. A 1 minute 15.274, claiming it in the end by only what was 1,000th over his rival, but still, whether it's 1,000th or whether it's a 10th, winning is winning, as they say, and the MSR Purple driver now need to launch himself from second place to try and take the win. It'll be Antonio Bianchi who starts third there for INCA X51, and he will be joined on that second row of the grid by Squid Gang Racing's Fabian Sanchez. We then do have none other than what will be Shahi Saher starting 5th for Arrive and Drive Racing ahead of Elliot Rolls, with a DDK Racing drive 6th on the grid ahead of Jace Mayer for MSR Purple, and then it will be none other than Austin Thomas for MSR Green, who starts in 8th. A good session for him, no doubt about it, with Nick Peterson starting 9th for Arrive and Drive Racing, alongside MSR Green's Robert Nobles, who completes your top 10. It was only a 10th between the two of them. And then 11th on this grid is going to be Sergei Proc, who starts 11th for Privateer, head of fellow Privateer of Johnston Bra. We then have Xavier Zainav starting 13th for Rodent Racing, ahead of Inca Chips Gareth McAllister. And then on row number 8, Ryan Tebow and INCA Salsa Verde's Aaron Gusler. And Gusler enjoyed a decent qualifying session on his debut, ahead of then what will be the machinery in 17th place of Felipe Ramos, and the INCA Queso driver will be in the company of Cameron Nix for INCA Salsa Verde. For on the British driver, it will then be the American of Arturo Mayorga for INCA Chips, ahead of Joshua Cronin. Nicaraguan driver completing your top 20. And outside the top 20 is then going to be Renison Lowe, ahead of what will be none other than Matt Strong, as that's going to be the Team Boats and INCA Salsa Racing drivers going toe-to-toe from that 11th row of the grid. And then it will be 23rd on the grid, your driver of Ricardo Espino for what will be INCA Queso, ahead of DDK Racing's Elliot Cawte. And then on the final full row of the grid, it will be Leo Delmas for Rodent Racing and DDK with TH Jordan's Shea Perfect, with Carlos Balanas completing your 27 car starting order. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are good to go, and here come the lights for the first time today here, and well, without further ado, it's fire and lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for race number 1 here in Brazil. Round number 3 gets underway in full fury, and Adam Merchant immediately comes off Finley Fitzsimmons as they make their way to the braking zone. But behind, we've got fighting as well, as they all now scoot their way down through the centre S. But as they do, will there be more fighting further back? The answer is yes, there will, as that's going to be close side by side between Shahi Zaher and Austin Thomas. Further back as well, we have got Aaron Gusler battling with Elliot Cawte, and Ryan Tebow. Cawte is already up to 16th place from the back of the grid. He's had a phenomenal start. We've had difficulty with Ricardo Espino further back. We'll get a replay of that when we can, but into that braking zone for turn before they go, and all these drivers right now absolutely pushing each other onwards. The leaders are starting to pull away, as we've got a bit of a shuffling going on here. Shea Buffett's losing a lot of places. Run deep at turn 4. Oh, goodness me, who's that off the road? That's right, Tebow. Tebow's got out wide, and well, the car's just parked up there. Tebow's come to a halt. I'm not quite sure why, but he's had to immediately tow to the pits. So it's going to roll with Tebow's car. We're going to replay that when we can. But meanwhile, Xavier Zainav fighting with Joshua Cronin up the inside there in towards turn number 9. And Zainav right now doing very well as he makes way onto the brakes for turn number 10. But look at that, Elliot Cawte just taking all the confidence here of the cold tyres. And Cawte right now has got himself absolutely warmed up. The DDK Racing Team driver couldn't quite make the move on Cronin's stick. However, he showed his intent, and he's already now up into 16th. And I'm sure within the next couple of laps, he's going to be making his way to the top 10. But having started all the way back in 24th place, Cawte right now is absolutely flying. But meanwhile, after one lap, it is Adam Merchant who leads ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons by 0.6 of a second. Antonio Bianchi completes your top 3. Fabian Sanchez is 4th ahead of Elliot Rolls, who sits 5th. Then we have Jace Mann in 6th ahead of Shahi Zaher, 7th, followed by Austin Thomas, Sergey Proc, and Robert Nobles, who completes your top 10, but he may only complete it for now, because here they come down the run of the Retro Aposta this time, and Nick Peterson is getting closer and closer, and well, immediately Robert Nobles goes to fence, then the MSR Green Machine, and it's going to be Peterson looking one way, then the other, but as they make the way up towards what will be turn 6 and 7, there's still going to be all fighting between the two of them. Immediately Nobles on the push to pass button there to keep himself safe, trying to use that extra engine power that's given. It doesn't increase the top speed of the car, it just increases the accelerational capacity of the machinery, but the idea is there that Nobles using that tactically to keep himself safe, because they do get 200 seconds of it in both the races, and 200 seconds in the sprint will feel like a lot of time. In the feature, it's no time at all when we change the race distance by the best part of a factor of 3. But meanwhile, coming back to what is Elliot Cawte up the inside, there's Xavier Zainav, who goes deep at turn number 10. And I think that might have been forced on him there by Cawte, albeit no contact. Elliot Cawte just very eager to make that progress. And further, oh, goodness me! And for Aaron Gussler, it's all gone very wrong at the very start here of his campaign in season 17. There's been some contact to some description, and I think Karen Nix has been caught up in something as well off camera, because we've lost Nix to the pit line. But for Aaron Gussler, that looked absolutely horrendous. We'll get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, here comes Leo Delmas, who's had a much more passive start to this race compared to Cawte. And we're still battling with Shea Profit, who's coming back at him here into turn 1. And right now, Profit is not letting the man who's second in the championship run away with it. And in fact, he's going to absolutely stick it to him now as they make the way through turn number 3 and say to Delmas, if you want it, you're going to have to come and get it. Renison Lowe gets involved. And now as they power their way down the red top Aposta straight, here comes Delmas at the inside again. And Delmas this time, I think he's going to be saying, I'm not asking shade. And meanwhile, Redison Lowe here's going to look at the inside of what we Shea Profit and say, okay, if the door's that wide open, why don't I go for it as well? But up into turn 6 and 7, too wide they enter, and in the end Lowe's going to use all the downforce of the car to just swoop his way around the outside. Lovely move there for the 69 driver. Some would say it's nice, and as he makes his way through turns 8 and 9, well, Redison Lowe there moves into 19th, and well, the sponsor, the machine looking for a sponsor right now has definitely found a place instead. But as they make the way towards the end of this lap, coming to Gareth McAllister, he's under a bit of pressure here from Elliot Cawte, as now the fight for 13th place builds, but Cawte's progress now is starting to slow down a little bit, and that's not to say that he's losing pace, but the key point being here, of course, the field is now starting to gap open a bit, but he's going to make his way up the inside here. McAllister, well, he stays on the outside, and I think McAllister deciding to let the DDK Racing car go, given the fact he expects that it naturally will be the faster of the two of them over the race, and why would he cost himself time in the race when he can actually use Cawte to catch up to Stumbrar in front and also Peterson? And indeed, it's a bit of a weighing act there, and you've got to really dig deep and put aside your pride as a racing driver when you do have a faster driver coming on past. But if it's one that you don't normally see on circuit, and you've got to accept the fact that actually working with that driver is probably more beneficial than trying to fight the driver. Of course, if it was the final lap, I think McAllister would go all in defending, and we would absolutely love to see that. When you're not even halfway through the race, letting that lead car go is actually probably the smarter idea here. And meanwhile, speaking of lead cars, Adam Merchant and Finley Fitzsimmons, they're still together, but they have opened up a 2-second gap to Antonio Bianchi, who right now really leads the run of the best of the rest. But and Fabian Sanchez is behind him, his teammate. So right now, third of the full place would not go amiss for the two teammates here in their team's championship campaign. And I think they'll be very happy with that, all things considered. Oh, hold up a second. That's Xavier Zainav is into the barrier there. That's at the exit of turn number 10 in towards 11. Car parked up in the wall. I don't know how it's ended up there, but for Zainav, that's not going anywhere. Front left suspension is completely gone in the car. And well, we've got quite a few replays that we're going to need to get, ladies and gents, but I can tell you that we have seen quite a few incidents, but still, without incident here, it is going to be Johnston Bra under pressure from Elliot Cawte, and Cawte right now on the back of him as we ride aboard with the number 1 car. As he makes way down the hill here, well, an absolutely lovely run for the centre S. This is going to be fairly straightforward, and well, then Stumbrav runs out a little bit wide there, I think understeering slightly, and Cawte will just power his way on through, albeit Stumbrav's not backing off, to be fair, and in the end, Cawte is going to have to tuck up the inside. Will he keep it in track limits? I think he does, just about. He almost runs down the hill there and runs wide, but in the end, he keeps it nicely together, and that'll be a move made from Cawte. Up the road from him, Sergei Pirog, Austin Thomas, Robert Nobles, and Nick Peterson, they're all getting close together as Peterson there takes a quick sneak up the inside of Robert Nobles. He takes a sniff and in the end doesn't like the smell of it and backs out. But understandably, Peterson is now starting to think about moves. And I think with Cawte catching, this is going to be a question of when, not if, this will suddenly turn into a freeway battle for 10th place rather than a two-way fight, as Peterson needs to get a move on. Nobles goes deep there at Magulo corner. Almost a bit of a wheel tap between the two. And he goes up the inside there. Now Nobles looks to the switchback, but you're going to see Elliot Cawte here will also get a double draft as they head up the hill, and Nobles will now side by side with Peterson coming over the rise. It's brilliant racing between these two, respectful and fair and clean racing all the way. And here comes another Elliot Cawte, but he has to back off there, as the pit lane would have absorbed him. And as they make their way down towards turn one, it's going to be 3 wide under braking, and Cawte goes between the two of them. He goes to the Moses manoeuvre. Meanwhile, Robert Nobles has gone straight on. I wonder if he's clipped the wall at all, but it's not over yet because Cawte is still fighting with Peterson, and in the end, Cawte does get ahead coming out into the restaurant Foster, but as they make the way down the straight, well, you can see just in the foreground, that was Sergei Pirog defending versus Austin Thomas, and in fact, Austin Thomas has just got ahead of him coming through turns 4 and 5, but Pirog has not given up yet. There's battles everywhere we look as he roars his way up the hill, and Thomas moves into 8th place, but Pirog is staying right with him here as they get ready to go onto the brakes again. But without further ado, we need to take a quick trip back in time, ladies and gentlemen, and understand some of the big moments in the early stage of this race, including what happened to Riccardo Espino on the opening lap. So, oh my good lord, Riccardo Espino's car had already come apart before he'd even made it to the braking zone. That's not normal. What exactly happened? We go back to the race start to understand, and this was the onboard with Riccardo Espino. So the lights were going on, he was waiting to launch, and as the Mexican driver got underway, well, a bit of a slow start for the cars in front of him, goes to the outside. A nice move initially, making his way up the gearbox. Oh, goodness me, and that was contact in the end, and that was Leo Delmas, I think, making contact to Espino, and his race collapsed with that contact to the concrete barrier. We had then this for Ryan Thibault, and this was Thibault making his way out of turn 4 into 5, the Canadian driver heading up the hill, and as he did, he just pulled over to the right. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Perhaps we'll get a feed from him later today to understand what's happened. And we had this for Cameron Nix on lap number 2. This was Nix down towards turn number 1 as he made his way into the braking zone. And as he did, went deep. And was there some contact there of Aaron Gessler? There might have been, but Nix was sent into the barrier as a result. And I think Gessler as well, only moments later, had a bit of a nightmare moment of his own. This was coming out of turn number 10, got the power down into 11. And the rear of the car just swept loose on him there. Still warming. Oh my goodness. And Shea Buffett was not able to take evasive action in time, and that explains what happened to the pair of them. And then we had this for Xavier Zainab on lap number 4. This was the other member of the outfit for Raccoon GP, and as he made his way through turn number 10, got the power down too soon, and the rear of the car went to the barrier, and that was Zainab's race in pieces. And then we had this for Robert Nobles only moments ago. This was going down the start finish straight. In fact, the car was wobbling there. I think he'd already picked up damage from somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, but in the end he's had to straighten the car out. I think there was a bit of a clip to the barrier perhaps, but goodness me, what a bit of drama, ladies and gentlemen, and we head back to your live racing. But as we come back, we've still got a little bit of time left in this race, no doubt about it, as we do bring you back to all the action on lap number 8 of 10. And right now at the very front of the field, we've neglected these two for some time. We are going to complete this race based on lap distance rather than time. And right now, Adam Merchant ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons. But for how long can he keep Fitzsimmons behind? Because these two have been together since the very start of the race. And Merchant was under pressure into turn 1, and then Fitzsimmons backed off a little bit. But as they come down in towards turn number 11, I think Fitzsimmons right now is starting to build the confidence as we ride aboard here with the MSR Purple driver. In towards turn number 12 he goes, and we can see there, ooh, goodness me, Finley, keep it together. That's the sign of how hard he's pushing there. The fact the rear of the car snatching loose as he made his way out to turn number 12, and trying to get the power down, but that dirty air of the Squid Gang racing car in front is just slightly impacted his ability to get the traction he wants. And you can see there Merchant weaving from side to side. That's to break the toe as much as possible. He is a allowed to do a weave on the straight once, but not allowed to do it multiple times. He's got to be careful of that, but if he keeps doing it, he may get awarded from the stewards, if not a post-race time penalty. But down they come then in towards turn number 4, and well, Fitzsimmons is going around the outside here. Will he be able to go for it? There's contact between the two, and on the side pod there, Fitzsimmons is sent a long way out wide, and well, Adam Merchant was never going to let it go. A little bit of an elbow touch between the two of them, but it was a light tap at best, and therefore they've both been able to survive it. Well, they'll get away with that one, and Adam Merchant here is showing the other two-time champion that he's not just going to simply step aside. And well, this is definitely built up to be a hot rivalry between them. Meanwhile, in the Brazilian heat, we also do see Joshua Cronin and Leo Delmas side by side, as Delmas makes another place here. Now that's up into 30th place, and well, Cronin in the end went a bit deeper in turn number 4, but still tucking behind Delmas. And I wonder potentially Delmas' contact we saw at the Stars race, as we understand it, we believe that was Delmas making contact with none other than Ricardo Espino. If it was, I wonder if that's why we have not seen Delmas make as much progress as Cawte, or he's had to take a lot more time to, so perhaps he's nursing some damage on the car, and well, that could be a factor, but we will see. Further back, as our leaders have gone on to the final lap of racing here in our sprint race today. This is Arturo Mayorga versus Matt Strong. Strong right now the car chasing, and they've got Felipe Ramos only 7 tenths up the road from the pair of them. So therefore this could be a little bit of an exciting end to their race, no doubt about it. Albeit I think this is going to come down. That's where Strong can attack Mayorga, because he seems to be the faster of the two drivers. Mayorga is not as confident coming out these corners, but understandably here this is a circuit whereby you get it slightly wrong, and it is very far gone because the way the grass is on the circuit, and the fact it typically slopes away from tarmac rather than run flat or towards it. So once you go wide, you normally end up a trip to Narnia effectively. But as we do see, Matt Strong here trying to look up the inside of Arturo Mayorga. Doesn't quite work this time and has to wait a little bit longer. But Felipe Ramos, meanwhile, having a very poor run out the corner. And we ride on board with the INCA car as it makes its way down, but Mayorga backed off, and here comes Strong looking up the inside. So in the end, Ramos could just expect the two to fight each other. Strong tries to go all on the brakes there in towards turn number 4. Will he get it? The answer is yes. Lovely move there from Strong. He moves up into 18th place. That's going to be worth some extra points later on today potentially. But meanwhile, we come to the front of the field, because after a small altercation between himself and Finley Fitzsimmons, where it was a rub in the end for Adam Merchant, he's got the rub in the right direction, because he takes victory here in Brazil by only 1.5 seconds over Finley Fitzsimmons. But whether it's a whole second or a tenth, what matters is he's done it ahead of Antonio Bianchi, who takes third place, and it'll be Fabian Sanchez who finishes fourth ahead of Elliot Rolls, who then takes fifth ahead of Jace Mayer, who just fends off Austin Thomas and Sergei Proc in a three-way run to the line. And then it will be Nick Peterson who takes ninth place behind them, ahead of Johnston Bra, who in the end was able to beat Gareth McAllister, I believe, by a tenth at the finish line. And McAllister had Elliot caught practically right on his backside, who finished 12th. Leo Delmas takes 13th ahead of Joshua Cronin, and it's Redison Lowe who rounds off your top 15 ahead of Carlos Balanos, Felipe Ramos, and Matt Strong. In the end, did outrun Arturo Mayorga to the finish line. So your 19 finishers are thus, and it was a lap down for Shea Bruffett who completes your top 20. But what a first race of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And indeed, now as we take a 5-minute breather in preparation for our second race of the day, the good news is that gives us plenty of time to divulge what is all those race results, subject to any steward's inquiries. And here they are. And as we can see, a very entertaining opening race to open up round number 3 of Season 17 of the League Zero Formula Series, brought to you by INCA Salsa. And what we got to see more so was Adam Merchant taking victory for Squid Gang Racing ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons for MSR Purple. I suspect there might have been a few words between the two drivers in the build-up to race number 2, given the fact that in the end they got away with it, but understandably, Adam was never going to let Finley take that lead without forcing Finley to have to absolutely give it everything. But a small rub towards the radiator pod of Finley Fitzsimmons' car saw him elbowed wide at turn number 4, and well, we'll have to see what happens with the stewards if it does go to the stewards after today. But either way, that's how things stand currently, and behind the MSR Purple drive is a further 3 seconds back to INCA X51C's Antonio Bianchi, who really in the end was the best of the rest. Albeit in a like-minded car, Fabian Sanchez took 4th place for Squid Gang Racing ahead of Elliot Rolls, and then Jace Mayer outside the top 5 there for MSR Purple. He was ahead of the sister machine of MSR Green's Austin Thomas. We saw it very close between the two of them, only a tenth at the finish line, and it was a further attempt back to Sergei Proc, who tried to make it 3 wide on the photo finish, but couldn't quite get fully alongside there, the privateer. The American was then followed up by his fellow countryman of Nick Peterson for Revive and Drive Racing, and also John Stonbra, and Stonbra did well to finish inside the top 10, the privateer. and of Gareth McAllister, who was best the rest there for INCA Chips in 11th place. It was Elliot Cawte in 12th for DDK Racing, ahead of Leo Delmas for Rodent Racing, and it was a further 4 seconds back there to Joshua Cronin for Team Boats, who finished just ahead of his teammate of Redison Lowe by half a second. It was a further 3 seconds back to Carlos Balanas, the Raccoon GP driver, gradually making progress here today. He was ahead of Felipe Ramos for INCA Queso, and it was a further 2 tenths back to INCA Salsa Racing of Matt Strong. It was a good end to the race for Strong as he managed to find a way past Arturo Mayorga, the INCA Chips driver, and it was a lap down for Shade Bruffett for DDK with TH Jordan after his early contact with none other than what was the machinery, I do believe, of Ryan Tebow. We did see in 21st place, 2 laps down, Shahi Zahair for Arrive and Drive Racing. We didn't quite see what happened to him in the end, unfortunately. We didn't catch that on camera, but there's definitely a story to that one, and commiserations to him. But we did see what happened to Robert Nobles there for MSR Green. Unfortunate into his race, as it was for Xavier Sainav, the Rodent Racing driver ahead of Aaron Gessler, with the INCA Salsa Verde cars having a nightmare opening to their round here in Brazil, with Cameron Nix just behind him, and Ryan Tebow and Ricardo Espino, your final retirees. And sadly for Espino, he never even made it through turn number 1 before the car was in pieces. And I'm sure and hope that race number 2 is a much more successful race for him. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is a rundown of your results. And of course, your top 6 will be inverted from that race. And what it does mean is that your grid for what will be race number 2 will be headed up by none other than Jace Mayer, who's earned the right to be on the front row and on that pole position. But alongside him will be none other than Elliot Rolls. And that's going to be an interesting front row with Antonio Bianchi and Fabian Sanchez, who I said were teammates. They're not quite teammates, but they are running a very similar liveried car there. So you'll have to forgive me for confusing the two together. But they will be on your second row, and then Finley Fitzsimmons and Adam Merchant will be on row number 3. There's just one interesting part of that story. It will now be Finley Fitzsimmons who starts ahead of Adam Merchant, and I wonder whether Finley might return the favour to Adam, albeit try to keep it as clean as possible. And again, there is a fine line in motorsport with regards to where you are both giving each other as good as you're being given and when it goes too far. But given their experience, I suspect both drivers will know exactly where that line is. And indeed, in these cars, you can't afford to be too much crash and bump for the simple reason they're open wheelers. Get them entangled with each other, and both cars are going to end up in a barrier of some description or just end up in bits in the pits. But hopefully we don't see that. But what we have seen so far today has been some absolutely incredible racing, as League Zero always delivers in its Formula Series, to be fair. And where it's been at the front of the field or further down the field, we've seen some great moments, albeit not for this man, Cameron Nix, who'll be hoping that race number 2 is going to be a bit more straightforward. But of course, 30 laps are coming up. It is going to be 3 times the distance, plus also a pit stop thrown into the mix, so expecting at least 1. And that normally does calm things down over the opening couple of laps and really opens up the race into strategies. Cameron Nix there shows you what happens out of turn number 2 when you do get a little bit wrong. Without further ado, as we look to his teammate of Aaron Gustler, we're going to take a quick sip of water. And if you haven't grabbed yourself a top of a refreshment, definitely do it now, ladies and gentlemen, because we are only approximately about 3 to 4 minutes away from going green flag racing for the second time today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to make our way to our grid for race number 2 here in round number 3 of the championship. Interlagos has definitely kept us guessing thus far, but what awaits in the feature race? It's time to find out. And so onto the grid, all the drivers go. And as they do, this is how they'll line up for our final race here in Brazil. And it is Jace Mayer then who takes the top 6 inverted pole position for MSR Purple, head of Elliot Rolls for DDK Racing. Behind him on row number 2 is Squid Gang Racing's Fabian Sanchez, ahead of Antonio Bianchi as they look to do battle once again. But the INCA X51C driver will also need to keep an eye on his rearview mirrors, because he's got Finley Fitzsimmons for MSR Purple and Squid Gang Racing's Adam Merchant, who complete your top 6 inversion. And your race winner from race 1 will be very keen to try and make his way through as quickly as he can. Austin Thomas begins this one in 7th place at MSR Green, ahead of the privateer of Sergei Proc, with Nick Peterson in 9th place for Arrive and Drive Racing, ahead of the privateer of Johnston Bra. That is going to be your top 10, and in 11th place it will be Gareth McAllister for INCA Chips, ahead of DDK Racing's Elliot Cawte. After his lightning start in race number 1, can he halve the gap to the front of the field once again? Can he even finish inside the top 5? We will see. Rodent Racing's Leo Delmas is right behind us, and then he did manage to find a way through and managed to get himself into that position, so therefore he'll be eager to make even more progress without any contact in this one as well. And it'll be Joshua Cronin for Team Boat in 14th place, ahead of his teammate of Renison Low, who starts 15th. Joining Low on the 8th row of the grid is going to be Carlos Balanas, the Raccoon GP driver, ahead of Felipe Ramos for INCA Queso, and there'll be INCA Salsa Racing's Matt Strong. Round off your top 20, meanwhile, it's going to be Arturo Mayorga for INCA Chips and DDK with TH Jordan's Shade Prophet. And outside that top 20, we will have Shahi Zahir starts 21st for Arrive and Drive Racing ahead of MSR Green's Robert Nobles, and there'll be Xavier Zainab for Road Racing ahead of Aaron Gersler on the 12th row of the grid. And behind the INCA Salsa Verde drive to make the final full row of the grid, it's going to be Cameron Nix at INCA Salsa Verde and the privateer of Ryan Tebow. And last on the grid, after a miserable race number 1, he'll be hoping just to make it through turn number 1 this time, it'll be Ricardo Espino. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, the grid is set, the lights are going on, it's time to go racing. And, well, for the second time today, we will see all our drivers build the revs. There's firing lights. And it's lights out, away we go here as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. 45 minutes or 30 laps racing gets underway. And as they head down towards the opening corner, well, immediately there, Mayer under pressure as Sanchez tries to go around the outside of Rolls. Does he get it? We will see as they all come down the weave and the wind of turns 1 and 2. Out wide is Ricardo Espino. He avoids the barrier, however, so he's been able to keep it going this time, surely, as Xavier saying now has been caught up in a bit of an altercation. But meanwhile, looking at the front of the field, that is going to be Fabian Sanchez here trying to hold off Finley Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons is already up into third place. He's had a monster start to this race, and was Elliot Rolls there, gets brushed slightly aside by Adam Merchant. We're heading up towards turns 6 and 7 right now. All the battles are truly on. Austin Thomas, he hasn't gained or lost, but he might be losing here to Elliot Cawte. But Cawte gets caught out there on turn number 7, mounts the apex curb, and the car bounces loose. He has to bring it back together and does so just about. But the number 1 driver here right now, he is definitely able to fight for the right to defend this championship title as this season goes on. As Leo Delmas looking around the outsider, and Delmas had a brilliant start, so has Cawte. To be fair, they've both gained 4 places respectively. They have not been slow starters, but their progress now has been halted a bit as this whole field is starting to go line astern. Further back, we do see a bit of movement here from Shahi Zahir. Zahir making steady progress here as he comes in towards what will be turn number 12, and then Felipe Ramos and Arturo Mayorga are just behind as they start to make way up the hill. Ryan Tebow there in 22nd place. Well, meanwhile, he's had a reasonable start, getting 4 places since the beginning, and as he roars his way on around, well, right now you can understand the fact that Tebow thinks to himself, one thing only, which is how far can he go. But meanwhile, we come back to what's going on here between Austin Thomas and Elliot Cawte, as right now Cawte trying to make sure that Thomas is going to be put behind him, but Thomas says no. But from that, we've got even more fighting going on as they're weaving one way on the side. Is this a boxing match, or is this what is super formulas? I think it's a combination of both here with the way they're bobbing and weaving. You'd think they're avoiding punches, but right now they're trying to deliver a blow on one another in terms of making a move stick, but no, he's quite able to here. As meanwhile, Elliot Cawte still defending. Leo Delmas says, right, if you can't pass Thomas, then why not let me through? And I think Cawte's just trying to set up a special move here if he can, but it's just not coming through for him at the moment. But we've got several cars into the pit lane. There has been some drama on this second lap as well for Tebow and Nix. I think the two of them had a bit of a coming together, but we will try and get a replay of that when we can. But my goodness me, right now I can see one thing, the sprint race was really just what was the precursor to it. Oh, Austin Thomas runs wide. He runs wide at turn number 10, and here comes Leo Delmas around the outside as well. So Cawte in the end does find his man, so does Delmas. And here comes Sergei Proctor, had a slow start. He's dropped down for 8th to 10th, and he goes deep. He runs wide there at turn number 12, and I can tell you one thing, that's going to take a lot of control to get it back on the track. He does so brilliantly, to be fair, but from him it's a battle of teammates at the front of the field right now. It's MSR Purple left and right. Fitzsimmons trying to make the move on Mayer. Mayer on the inside. Fitzsimmons around the outside, and Fitzsimmons scoops his way on around. And Adam Merchant now want to return the favour here versus Mayer as he tries to build up and roaring his way down towards turn number 4. And the Merchant's on the inside. Surely this is going to be as straightforward as it comes now, because he's got a nose ahead, and therefore he can absolutely go win. And I think Fitzsimmons was perhaps hoping that his teammate of Mayer was able to hold up Merchant a little bit longer. But Adam Merchant got such a good run coming out of the Curva del Sol. I think it was a question of when he'd make the move, not if he could make the move, and he's made it stick. So your 2 lead drivers for race number 1, they're now back together. But we head back down the field. This is Buffett versus Proc. And after Proc's excursion, well, right now he's fighting here for 14th place. And Buffett cuts back. A lovely switchback move here from the DDK with TH driver. And well, in the end, he's going to get this done. What a move in the number 79. Cutting all the way through. And Shea Buffett up into 14th place. But at the back of this group, you've got Felipe Ramos right now queuing up here as he tucks up the inside there of Shahi Zahir. And well, both of these drivers had a difficult race number 1 as that's a run wide there from Renison Low. Low brings himself back on the road just in time. And Zahir on the inside line. Down in towards turn number 12 they come. And these two drivers right now, my goodness, what a battle's going on. But Ramos Ramos in the end is made to wait as he goes a little bit deep there at turn number 12. It has not come through for him. But coming on towards the next lap here, full throttle every step of the way. Arturo Mayorga also to the back of this group. And indeed, what a battle is building between all these drivers right now, wherever you look, as here comes Mayorga looking up the inside of Ramos. Onto the brakes he goes. No way through for the INCA Chips machine, but Ramos will outbrake himself. He'll have to go defensive into turn number 2. And Mayorga going around the outside. A bit of a tap of wheels there. And in the end, the move will be made. But from then, we have Sergey Proc battling free wide with Robert Nobles and Redison Lowe. It's Proc on the inside there as Nobles cuts back to the outside and Lowe completely backs out of it. Proc manages to block what was Nobles there. And in fact, Lowe now switches back through. He picks one. Does he get 2 of them here? As they make the way up the hill, he's going to try and go around the outside of turn number 6. That'll keep on the outside of 7 and to 8 as well. But Redison Lowe, what a move there. And in the end, Sergey Proc has no response. But here comes Shahid Zahair. Ooh, goodness me, Shahid Zahair touching the grass there. And well, in the end, the number 10 driver just avoiding clipping what's the rear of Nobles' car. He drops behind Felipe Ramos and also Arturo Mayorga. We'll have to get on board of that because, my goodness, that was very close to tears, but not quite so as he brings it back on the road. But what a set of battles. He's all over the back of Mayorga like a bad rash. And right now, well, Mayorga, I think, is going to be a bit vulnerable here as they head up the hills. We jump on board with Shahid Zahair, and well, the lovely pink, purple, and yellow gloves, he roars his way up behind. Don't let them distract you, ladies and gentlemen. No overtake button being deployed here for Zahair, and I understand that the fact that he wants to try and save the push to pass and just look for a move. But Mayorga steps to the outside there, and I think wants Zahair to come through and not cost each other any time. I think it's a smart move between these two, and therefore, as he locks up on the front left, he does get it done, but not without an error there. Zahair, he's having to push hard. But back to Gareth McAllister as we see Zahair's teammate Nick Peterson dive up the inside there in towards turn number 4. And McAllister not really fighting it. I think letting Peterson do what he does best, which is make progress. And McAllister, meanwhile, just more steady in the ship at this point and understand what I think his game plan is just to take his time and get more into this race as time goes on. We know he's a good strategic driver, although not the fastest of the one-lap pace drivers out there. But as the battling finally calms down, that on lap number 5, and as soon as I say that, it's going to kick off. Surely not, very shortly. Well, what we are going to do, we're going to take a look back in time at some of the big moments from the start of this race, because there have been several, and indeed it's been an absolutely entertaining race thus far. But what exactly has happened to a few of our drivers, and we're going to get some replays to explain. Well, we were. And then suddenly, Robert Nobles and Felipe Ramos have now decided to battle! And that's contact there as Nobles with snap oversteer there coming out the corner. Make side-by-side contact to Ramos' car. And, well, they've both survived it, or have they? As Ramos goes deep, I wonder if that impact there has damaged something in the steering angles. And, well, as he brings it back onto the road, I can tell you one thing, Ramos, I think they're a bit shaken up. But he's going to stir himself back up here, try to get himself together. But whilst all this is going on, oh, there's contact between Shea Prophet and Gareth McAllister. And it suddenly erupts. As soon as I say we're going to cut away to replays, well, Gareth McAllister up onto 2 wheels there. Shea Prophet lose in the rear of the car. And, well, there's more to a story than that. And meanwhile, we come to Austin Thomas, who's defending hard versus Leo Delmas. And Delmas go for the switch back here for turns 4, 5, and up the hill in towards 6 they go. And right now, Austin Thomas, he's going to fall back a little bit here as behind Johnston Bra fighting with Nick Peterson. Peterson trying to go around the outside. He's almost there, but Stunbra in the end says to him, if you're going to run that wide, I'll make my way back on the inside. Thank you very much. And Stunbra defending well here, but Peterson's got his nose in towards turn number 9 here. Through Piderio they come. And out in towards turn number 10. You can see Peterson looking one way, then the other. He's going to look to the inside now, tries to tuck in. But Stunbra sees it coming in. What he does, he gives him the smallest door available and essentially says to Peterson, yes, you can do it, but if you do, you're going to make contact with me. It's really one of those spaces. Stunbra knows what he's doing there, and he's essentially saying to Peterson, are you really smart about your moves or are you not? And Peterson, definitely very smart that he passes the intelligence test. But meanwhile, here's a test as well for third place. This is going to be Jason Mayer looking around the outside of Fabian Sanchez. And in fact, it's Sanchez who's on the attack here. Mayer has fallen backwards over the last couple of laps. And Sanchez comes on through there with a lovely 1, 2, 3 in terms of corner pass. And now Antonio Bianchi and Elliot caught up on the back of this. And Cawte right now is absolutely flying. He started in 12th place. He's up to 6th. And shortly he's going to look around the outside of Bianchi as well as they come down through the corner. Does he keep it within track limits? Yes, he does. Just about as Elliot Cawte. He makes 5th place happen. And now Antonio Bianchi's all over the back of him. But the DDK Racing driver here, well, he's definitely right now got the ointment to what was a back of the grid start in race number 1, in the fact that this man in the number 1 machine is already up into the top 5. We were wondering if he could make it to the top 5. The answer is yes, he can. Can he now make it to the podium? Can he even take the win here? He is the fastest driver on circuit at the moment. Even in traffic, he is lapping as quick as the leaders. And, well, understandably, at this point, Elliot Cawte right now, I think the sky's the limit here today. They've let the chain go, and Sonny's absolutely bolting. But from this and all the battling that's going on up the hill, well, we've got more going on for Sergey Proc versus Shahid Zahair. as these two still together, despite the fact they've both had some very entertaining races so far. And I think they're both nursing cars with a little bit of damage to the aero, but not too much that's holding them back at this point. But as they make the way in towards turn number 12, we come back to Sanchez versus Mayers. Mayers going to try and go around the outside and do what Sanchez did to him only moments ago. And what he's going to do it outside to inside here, down through the centre S. Oh, there's a little bit of touch between the two of them, and in the end they survive it. But here comes Cawte past Bianchi. He's going to make it 3 wide down the red top Foster straight. And here we go then towards the braking zone. It's going to be Cawte to the right, Sanchez in the middle, and Mayer on the outside, and Elliot goes for it, but with that Sanchez going deep, Chase Mayer switches it back, and he makes his way back ahead of Sanchez, and here comes Antonio Bianchi, and the two sister machines right now for two different teams. They're going to just simply stay line astern, but Elliot makes a 2-for-1 pass there, and indeed right now I can tell you one thing, whilst the Boxing Day sales may be long gone, right now he's making his own January sales here as Elliot Cawte. He gets a 2-for-1 offer, and now it's 6 seconds between himself and Adam Merchant, the next man up the road, but Cawte is up into third. How far can he go is the question that we have to stamp out there word by word, syllable by syllable, because of the simple reason this man is absolutely on a mission. Has he got the pace to chase them down? I think so. Has he got the time to chase them down? We don't know. But what we do know is there's been some absolutely incredible racing so far. There's even more of this to come, surely, because Chase Mayer right now, he hasn't got the draft to Cawte in front of him, and here comes Sanchez back at him. Again, it's going to be round number 3 of these two, not just because we're here in Brazil, but the fact is, this will be the 3rd time they fight into turn 1, and well, in the end, Sanchez is going to be past there. Well, Sanchez will pass Mayer as he goes deep on the brakes, but this puts him on the inside for 2, and it will blunt Mayer's momentum, but around the outside, surely not. No, Antonio, that's not going to work, and in the end, he tucks back in immediately. I can read that man's mind there. He thinks to himself, yes, no, actually, that's not going to work, but as they come on down, Sanchez right now defends the inside with Mayer there. Oh, and there's going to be a look in the middle of the road, and they end up going into the sky. Antonio Bianchi there rolls over, and when in lands back on what will be the car's 4 wheels, but that was a look in the middle of the road there, and well, Chase Mayer and Antonio Bianchi are coming together. Chase Mayer still going by looks of things, but Bianchi surely will need to bring that car into the pit lane if it doesn't tow, for the simple reason as these two make the way up the rise, they're still fighting in 2 cars right now that definitely look as though parts of them will be in the scrap heap by the end of the day. But meanwhile, Antonio Bianchi fighting with Nick Peterson, but now the damage is being felt, minus that front wing. And I think he saw the opportunity in the middle of the road. He may have outbroke himself, to be fair, given the overspeed he would have picked up, plus the side toe of what was Sanchez's car. It would have been a huge amount of extra speed, and in the end, unfortunately, collecting Matt and going over the top of him there. And indeed, what a nightmare incident for the pair of them. But it seems like both drivers are all right. Their spirits have been dampened, but understandably, that's going to put a huge dampener on their race. But with all that, we do take a trip back in time now to look at some of the big moments from the opening 10 laps of this race, and it all began with Ricardo Espino's off at turn number 1. So this was when the sun was out, and this was down towards the braking zone, and Espino on the outside, and contact again! You've got to feel for the man. That was contact there with Xavier Zainav, sadly, and Ricardo Espino and Zainav having to come in together as quick as that, and it all ended up in tears for the pair of them. We then had this for Elliot Rolls on the opening lap, and this was Rolls making his way down towards turn number 4. This was the absolutely brilliant battle that really kicked things off, but in the end, on that outside line, Cole tyres and ended up having a trip wide, and that opened the door for Adam Merchant to come through. But where it went wrong for him, it also went much wronger. That's not a word, but we're going to add it to the dictionary right now for Carlos Balanas. And Balanas was on the outside here, and up the inside a couple of drives went. He touched the grass there at turn 6 into 7, and the rear of the car snatching loose, and into the barrier, and as quick as that, it was a tow to the pits. We had this Ryan Thibault on lap number 2. And this was Thibault battling at the time with Sergei Perot. No, he was not battling with Sergei Perot. That was Aaron Gersler. And in the end, straight into him came Cameron Nix. Nix had nowhere to go at that point. This was the onboard from Nix's perspective. When in fact, this was not the onboard from Nix's perspective at the time. This was afterwards. And I think Cameron Nix, with the damage, just pulled to the side of the end, respect to the fact the car was going nowhere. This was the onboard, meanwhile, of... Well, it was not the onboard with Cameron Nix. In fact, he was up the road there, so I think we've got our 2 drivers conflated to each other. We do apologise for that. But we then had this for Sergei Perot. This was Perot at the time, chasing down what some more places. He was trying to battle with Austin Thomas, and in the end, it went a bit deep and went to the grass, and that put him down into the fight for 15th place. Many of you may remember that. And then had this for Robert Nobles on lap number 5. And this was the MSR green driver, fight at the time of the 73. Got the power down, too eager on the power. The rear left tyre touching that exit curb and making contact there. And sadly for Nobles, it went sideways as it did for none other than what was one of his other rivals. And Aaron Gustler just able to pick his way between the two. And then we had this only moments ago, the big incident between Antonio Bianchi and Jace Mayer. This was the run down towards turn number 4. Under braking they went. And well, you can see that. I think he broke at his normal point, but the overspeed just carried the car so deep into the corner, and we went up, down, around there, and well, definitely 10 out of 10 for style, but thankfully, most important thing, both drivers okay, and I don't think Jason Mayer too happy about that one, to be fair. I think he was fuming at what was an incredible battle, but understanding when the stakes are that high, they will go wrong at some point in the race, ladies and gentlemen, but it doesn't take away from the incredible racing action that we got to see all out to that point as we make our way back to your live pictures. And as we do coming back, well, there's still more to come. No doubt about it, this race is very far from done. And right now, well, what are the big stories at this point? We have Nick Peterson on the back of Joshua Cronin as he looks for a potential move on the inside of Cronin for 8th place. That's going to be a relatively straightforward pass there. And well, Peterson makes that move count. We shave Ruffett a little bit further behind. And then we do have none other than Shahi Zahir battling with Jace Mayer. Now, Mayer, of course, nursing damage to the car. We believe that Mayer has not pitted in this race thus far. And therefore, he's still trying to keep it alive with a car that is definitely not in optimum condition. And well, when he comes into the pit lane, the team will see what they can do repair work-wise. They will tell him how much time is needed to repair the car. And then after that, he will have to make the decision whether he's willing to commit to staying in the pit lane. There are no fast repairs for our drivers, as far as I'm aware. It is the fact that if they tow to the pits or have to come into the pits for repair work, they will have the full repair time. And the natural outcome of that, of course, is if you do pick up damage, it's mostly going to be damage that stays with you for the entire race. And that's why when we do have major incidents that do see drivers have to tow to the pit lane, they don't come back out onto the circuit afterwards for the simple reason that a fast repair, well, if it was available, it would be the tow time, and then you're back out there straight away. Whereas here, you're looking at multiple minutes of damage repairs. As meanwhile, Shahi Zahir, well, he's going to try and repair his run to a top 10 here because he looks around the outside of Johnston Bra, and in the end, we'll hold the inside now down in towards turns 2 and then into 3, and Zahir makes that work. Absolute textbook pass as Arturo Mayorga now tries to do the same as he looks on the inside in towards what we the opening quarter versus Sergei Proc, but Proc in the end defends it well, and Felipe Ramos starts to catch up. Renison Lowe, he's up the inside there of Jace Mayer as well, continues to try and hold it together. Indeed, whilst the damage seems to be mostly on Antonio Bianchi's car, I can tell you the fact of the matter is that Jace Mayer, with that damage that he's picked up, it has definitely hurt him a lot. You can see how he's losing so much time in the run of the corners, and therefore I suspect as soon as he can get it into the pits, he will definitely be having to think about spending some extra time waiting for the car to be repaired. But at the very front of the field, here is Finley Fitzsimmons at the moment, in control by 1.8 seconds over Adam Merchant. And then you do have a further 5 seconds back to Elliot Cawte. Here he is. And right now, with the DDK Racing Team driver having made his way through the field for that 12th place start, it does seem as though that progress now is starting to slow down a little bit. Not because he's not trying, but the fact of the matter is now he is in the territory where he's up against 2 drivers who are matching him on pace. Further down the order, Shea Profit up the inside of Cronin this time. So Cronin tried to make the move the previous time round. Now Profit takes 9th place back off of him. And, well, it's going to be a nice and easy move there for the number 79 driver. As Jace Mayer's into the pit lane as I look out my quarantine booth window, so is Felipe Ramos. They're now started to come in. This will be for their strategic stops, and Mayer's car being serviced as quickly as they can. They'll try and repair what damage they can in that limited period of time. I suspect it might be survival instincts all the way through to the end now, as in the end, well, he is taking a slightly longer pit stop than normal. So I think Mayer in the end is going to spend an extended period of time getting the repair works done, and in fact, he has spent the best part of 16 seconds stationary in the pits. There's some quick work they could potentially do. It might be to change the front wing potentially, but beyond that, not too much more. As Shea Profit has left Joshua Cronin into the dust now by a whole second, whilst we've been keeping an eye out of our commentary booth windows to what's been happening down in the garage for Jace Mayer MSR Purple. Well, meanwhile, Cronin, you can see it on your pictures, the fact that it's a 1.1 second gap, and well, Profit is definitely pushing on now. I think he's starting to feel a bit more confident here. He might be able to chase down Nick Peterson next, and Peterson is only 1.5 seconds up the road. But as we get towards the midway point of the race, it does mean now we are starting to enter the territory as well, whereby the field has opened up a little bit, and therefore time management and fuel management becomes key, as does the strategy. Elliot rolls, he has got Fabian Sanchez closing on him little by little, and you can see that the fact as Rolls runs wide there, turn number 4, that's going to be an off track. That will add to his instant point count as he takes a bit of grass almost up into turn number 6. And well, it's got to be careful here, because those mistakes are not good ones to make, particularly if you get to a braking zone or you go to turn into a corner and you're still touching the grass. Suddenly the whole rear of that car can lift up very quickly and go around. We saw that on the opening lap of what was race number 1, of course. One of our drivers ends up making his way all the way to the barriers as a result of touching the grass. But right now, at least, well, they all seem to be keeping it together, but we've still got a long way to go here, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few more surprises in the tail. Shahi Zahir makes a move on Joshua Cronin for 10th place. And that was going in towards turn number 9, I do believe. And we might be able to get a replay of that very shortly as to what's happened between the two of them, because it's a classic move. And in fact, here's a quick replay to explain. So this was coming up into turn number 8. Zahir building up the pace. They made the way into the braking zone, and Cronin in the end keeping the car right in the apex, but went a little bit wide there coming into turn number 9. I wonder if that was by design there to let the number 10 car go, just for the simple reason. It did look as though the attitude of the car was very much, you could have the place, I just want to keep it together right now and enjoy my race. And either way, well, Zahir not minding his own business and just right his way on through. And with that, we head back to your live racing. And as our drivers continue the way on around, well, we're still waiting for a lot of the pit stops out here. We've got plenty of time left in this race. There's no risk of us hitting the timer, the 45-minute timer for the race. It is indeed normally due to laps. And, well, the reason we mention that, of course, is because we did see both races in Miami last time out, because of the fact we did have lap 1 safety cars, which did consume the best part of what was 6 to 7 minutes. Well, we ended up with what was only a 7-lap sprint race, and what was in the end 26 of our 32 laps scheduled for the feature race. But that does happen, of course. We do run these races to time as much laps, just because when it's a perfect day, we do expect the races to finish before the timer, but also the fact that we do want to make sure that if we do have a bit of a nightmare day when it comes to instance, that we don't see the races go on for an extended period of time. We do model this at League Zero very much like, say, Formula 1 and other series, which normally do see their races lap determined normally, but they also do have a timer in the background due to the agreement between the running series and also the organisers and hosts of the circuit itself. But on to lap 17 we are, and as we look to Jace Mayer, well, right now, he's definitely still in a car that is not in the best of states compared to where he wants it to be, compared to, say, Fitzsimmons' sister car. But understandably, the 77 driver at this point in time, I think all he can be thinking to himself now is keep it together and just see if you can salvage some points out of this one. And I suspect he will be talking to the stewards after the race. He'll be submitting what will be his ticket to them with regards to the contact between himself and Antonio Bianchi. Of course, Bianchi, in the end, out there running. He is 2 laps down. Here he is, as he's had to make his way to the pits and go for some extensive repair work as well. And both drivers right now knowing that it has been a day today where definitely it was close, it was harsh, it was fair, but it was also a very firm racing. And when it goes wrong, as we always say, it will go spectacularly wrong. But that's what happens when you drive on the absolute limit here in any series, including in the League Zero Formula Series. But where the entertainment is now building is in the fight for 4th place, because Elliot Rolls makes his way down the start-finish line straight. And at first, when you look at that camera angle, it makes them look as though they're going incredibly slowly. I almost thought Rolls there was rolling to a halt. Not at the end. In fact, it's just the camera angle which takes away the perception of speed when they're making their way onwards. But he's definitely going quick at the moment, because he's got Fabian Sanchez chasing him down. And we ride on board the number 8 driver for Squid Gang Racing. And, well, at this point in time, what's going to be going through his mind? Well, there could be a couple of things going through his mind here. The fact of the matter is, firstly, that in that dirty air, which he's been sat in now for the best part of 7 laps, he's been getting closer and closer little by little. I think Sanchez here has got to be thinking strategy-wise, when does he want to pit? Now, the understanding is, of course, if he pits early, he can go for the undercut, particularly if he does change tyres, which you would expect all teams and all drivers to change their tyres in the pit lane, as it is a very quick stop. However, if he does come out into traffic, potentially, he'll suddenly lose the benefit of of what is those fresh tyres, he'll have to use them, he'll have to overheat them early, take them through a bit of an unnatural heating cycle compared to the preferred cycle, and that would subsequently potentially see him actually lose time to this man. And I think he's worried at the moment if he does pit, he's actually going to come out of what would be the bottom end of the top 10, and that would essentially put him into the battling traffic. But Finley Fitzsimmons has come into the pit, and also ducking over, it is going to be Sanchez in the end. He does decide to come in, whereas his rival does not, so therefore they've both gone as far as they can, but Fitzsimmons has been serviced, and he makes his way back out. As we leave one in the pits and pick up one leaving the pits, well, right now, where does this put Fitzsimmons in the running order? And the answer is, it actually puts him behind none other there than Sergei Proc. So he comes out behind the 19th place driver, albeit Proc will be a lap down at this rate, but he has made his way out ahead of Leo Delmas by 0.8 of a second. So that's actually worked out for Fitzsimmons. He has bought himself some clear track, and the expectation will be the cars in front will very soon be opting to come into the pits, but not quite at the moment, as meanwhile, Shea Buffett battling with Nick Peterson there up the inside. Buffett makes another place, and Peterson right now, well, trying to defend as much as he could, but Shea Buffett and Ian went all in, and Buffett's really coming alive. As meanwhile, well, I think they're trying to do a reenactment of Verstappen and Hamilton from all those years ago. That was Dunbar and Cronin coming together, and well, in the end, I don't think there's anything personal by that one, but I can imagine that both drivers there may have just ended up going a little bit too deep respectively, and Dunbar has found his way into 11th place, albeit a bit of a clumsy pass by the looks of things. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. I think there's a bit more story to it than what we've been able to catch on our cameras, but I suspect there we will be at the mercy of what we find out in due course. But as they come on around, Sergei Proc, meanwhile, battling now with Aaron Goessler, as they have both been passed by Finley Fitzsimmons. Oh, there's contact between the two as Goessler goes to turn in, and in the end, he finds Proc there. I don't think he expected Proc to go all in for the move, and well, that's led to contact. That is damage to the front wing there of the number 30, and as he's going to continue his way around, you can definitely see how the wing is actually bent up on what is the left-hand side from the driver's perspective, right inside that camera shot for a brief moment. It's minuscule at first until you look closer, but Aaron Goessler, as a result now, in a car that's definitely not going to be feeling fresh anymore. But meanwhile, Peterson and Zahair together here, and Shahi Zahair's going to look up the inside, and the two teammates will swap places. Zahair goes a bit deep, Peterson will come back at him here, and well, it's going to be entertainment between the two, but the number one rule is to beat your teammate. The number two rule is don't take your teammate out of the race, and well, Peterson being very fair, to be fair to Zahair, give him all the space. But Peterson makes his way back ahead, and understandably, I think now Zahair will be trying to come back at him sooner rather than later as we ride on board the nose camera here. This being right in what is the nose part of the front wing. And, well, the number 10 driver far back at the moment, but that's because of the field of view of this camera. It does make it look as though they're a lot further away than they really are, as he's half a second back. But right now for Zahair, I think this is going to be about waiting for another opportunity to go on the attack. Both of these drivers, of course, yet to make their one and only pit stop today. We are on lap 21 for our leaders. We're already down towards turn number 4. These guys are on lap number 20. Such is the gap building in the field, as is the natural way of things. But Zahair gets closer and closer here, and will he pull into the pits? The answer is no, but he's going to look to the outside here as he gets ready to look round in towards turn number 1, and in the end, Peterson completely lifts off there nice and early and decides, you know what, it's not worth us fighting. We're just going to cost each other time. I might as well just let you take the place. Good teamwork from both drivers there in the number 10 and 24 respectively. So Zahair moves up into 6th on the road. We believe effectively this is the battle for 8th place overall at this time, given where the strategies are playing out. Well, Finley Fitzsimmons, he did have some traffic in front of him, which he has found his way past in recent laps. We did leave him to it. And now what's happening is he's actually catching up to Jace Mayer, so he will shortly be putting a lap on his teammate, the 17th place member of MSR Purple. And well, Mayer will see the blue flags there. He'll know it's his teammate. They'll be on the radio, and immediately there, respecting the fact that Fitzsimmons needs every moment on circuit, and in good time as well, because Adam Merchant makes his way into the pit lane. We look to the blimp camera there as he gets ready to come to a halt. Elliot Cawte is also into the pit, but where is Fitzsimmons? Here he is, making his way through turn number 15. He'll be flat out all the way down, and this is going to be go, go, go all the way through the opening couple of corners. Merchant leaves the pit lane, goes over the pit limiter line at this point as quickly as he can leave the pits. He's going to go for it, but where is Fitzsimmons? Here is Fitzsimmons making his way on through. It's going to be close between the two of them. I think Adam Merchant's got back into the lead. I think he's done it, and I think Fitzsimmons coming out in that traffic has actually hurt him just a little bit, but the gap is absolutely marginal, and Elliot Rose is ahead of them. Now, we believe Elliot Rose is still to take his pit stop, with Elliot Cawte being the third place man in this proceedings, but Adam Merchant, at least for now, has found the lead on strategy. And Fitzsimmons, if he wants this win now, he's going to have to do it on the road. Albeit keen one, of course, Adam Merchant, your winner from race number 1 after that late contact between himself and Finley Fitzsimmons. And I suspect it's going to be just as gritty between these two in the closing stages here. We have got another 8 laps to go after this one. And Finley Fitzsimmons right now knows that it's one man between himself and what will be a win here in Brazil and some huge points to be landed. But the thing is, he's got to find a way past, and Adam Merchant is not going to make it easy. Both of them seasoned veterans. Both of them 2-time champions. Fitzsimmons right now the championship leader. Adam Merchant back on the grid as of this round today for season 17. And right now I can tell you one thing, there is no rust on either of these two. They are absolutely at their peak. As into the pits comes Elliot rolls, he releases then Merchant to battle with Fitzsimmons. And well, further back by 12 seconds is Elliot Cawte, who right now may be hoping, if he's aware of the fact that these two are getting close together, he may be hoping they start to fight each other and suddenly he'll be brought into this. But 12 seconds back, understandably, it is a long journey to try and close up. And therefore, for Elliot Cawte, I think he will mentally prepare himself for the fault of third place here today. But physically, he will be also trying to push on just that little bit more. But coming back down the order, Leo Delmas fighting for 5th versus Fabian Sanchez as Peterson, Profit, Zaher and Cronin all into the pit lane as well. So we're seeing the final pit stops here play out at the moment. And with all those pit stops in mind, we will see exactly where they're going to fit into that running order all the way to the very close. But Sanchez here trying to chase down. But you'll see the red light above the driver in the cockpit. That red light means he's got no push to pass left. He's used it all up. He's been using it quite aggressively in the early stages of this race. So right now for the number 8 driver, it does mean that he's got to do all this now in the dirt. Yeah, he's got to use slipstream and also his own ability to close up. But meanwhile, battle here with Shea Profet on the inside versus Peterson. This is going to be for 7th place. And well, Shea Profet has been one of the stars further down the field as Austin Thomas here. He looks to try and make it 3 wide somehow, but he's never going to find a way to do so. Not with Profit. And Peterson battling to show he's ahead there, acts as a bit of a rear guard for his teammate. I'm under braking here. Here comes what will be Profit around the outside, but he goes a little bit deep. Now Zaher's going to look around the outside in turn. I don't think he's going to be able to find it here as we jump on board with the 3rd man in this quartet. And right now, making his way to the brakes. It's going to be far from a barbershop quartet here. The only singing they'll be doing is if one of them takes victory in this group. But as he makes his way down in towards turn number 11. Zaher right now has got to look one way, then the other. He's got to look in front of him to keep an eye on Profit, but he's got to keep looking behind him versus Thomas. It's not a comfortable situation here when you really do have to do that balancing act. 60 seconds left on his overtake button at this point right now. Zaher knows he hasn't got much of it left. He's got to use it smartly at this point. But as they power their way down towards turn number 1, well, Profit goes to fence here. Zaher right now trying to help his teammate on Peterson out. In towards that braking zone he goes. Looking all around, Profit responds with his own bit of push to pass. And in the end, absolutely equal under braking in towards turn 1. Austin Thomas stays with them as well. They've both got plenty of overtake button left to use. And Thomas and Profit to counter Zaher. And Peterson, meanwhile, does seem to be just trying to hold on and hoping that Zaher can act as a little bit of an interloper. But Thomas looks on the inside. It's nothing at the moment. And understanding for Austin Thomas there, it was more of a feint to try and get Zaher to think a move was coming when it never was. But up the hill they roar. These drivers right now, incredible fighting, and Thomas is so eager to look for a move. He really wants to make this pass, but it's all about posture here as he looks to the outside. That's just to simply give himself clear track and therefore not overheat the front tyres nor the brakes. But down he comes then, and meanwhile Zaher is absolutely focused on one thing and one thing only, and it is Shea Profet's 79 car. Can he find a way past as Peterson tries to hold on? In terms of battles elsewhere, well, your lead battle is growing at the moment, and Gareth McAllister here in the INCA Chips machine is chasing down Joshua Cronin for what is 12th place, so they're all kicking off. It's always the way these feature races. We get that quiet period just before the rest of the pit stops occur, and then suddenly it all comes back to life, and well, looking from there back to the front of the field, here is your Squid Gang Racing leader in the Petronas machine of Adam Merchant, and well, he is still holding on versus Finley Fitzsimmons for now, as in my ear I've just heard that Joshua Cronin has had an off track when we've left him, unfortunately. But back to what is Austin Thomas and Shahi Zaher. And Austin Thomas, in fact, still behind Zaher. He tried to make the move on the outside in towards turn number 1. He's had no luck with it, but now he's going to be all over the drafts of Zaher. He's got it where he wants him, away from the Turn Prophet's car. Thomas looking around the outside, then onto the brakes. He goes and just sweeps inside at the right time. Then as Austin Thomas to take the racing line. And in the end, Shahi Zaher falls back behind. Now Nick Peterson, he has got Shea Prophet looking up the inside of him. Prophet is absolutely breathing down his neck. My goodness, right now, Nick Peterson, I can tell you one thing, he may not be the fastest fastest driver out there, but is he one of the most confident drivers out there in terms of knowing exactly when he can take his lines versus when he needs to go defensive? And Shea Buffett right now is keeping him honest so well. What a battle between these two. And when you consider the Buffett's come all the way from 20th place into 8th, meanwhile Peterson, who started 9th, is up to 7th, and Austin Thomas meanwhile had a huge tank slapper there coming out of turn number 10. We saw the car wobbling sideways. Well, right now Thomas has lost 2 places. They are all where they mean to be in this running order, and Shahi Zahir as well up from 21st to 10th. The 2 teammates in the number 10 and 24, well, definitely they have really worked hard in this race, and they've not got long left to go. They'll be hoping for more as here comes Buffett looking up the inside this time. Onto the brakes he goes. Can he get it stopped? There's contact, and it's going to send Peterson up into the air, and it sends Buffett to the grass. And in the end, well, they didn't quite get it right this time around. And suddenly, Austin Thomas and Shahi's ahead. They're no longer fighting for what is 9th place. They're fighting for 7th place instead. That's absolutely gutting to see it end like that. But that's the way it's gone. And Thomas right now immediately going defensive there versus Zahir. After passing him, he's trying to keep it together at this point, and Zahir just waiting for an opportunity. But what a bit of drama, and we need to go back and take a look at what exactly happened then, that contact between Buffett and Peterson. And here is the replay. This was coming down in towards turn 1. Peterson on the outside. Buffett dived on the inside there. And, well, some would argue that Peterson turned into Buffett. But what's interesting is the amount of overlap there. And that's going to be the big contention point, because Shea Buffett was not that far overlapping at that time, at least in that camera angle. Can we get an on board potentially? We can from the roll bar of Buffett's car. And what you'll see here is the fact Peterson did outbrake him, but then went to turn in. And I think he expected that Buffett would be further back there. So I think both drivers perhaps could have managed it slightly better, but Shane's argument would be I was there. Peterson's argument would be he was not quite all there. It's going to be a difficult one for the stewards if it does go to them, but back to your live racing we go. And so as we do, one board with Shahi Zahir, still chasing after what is Austin Thomas for that 7th place. But as these two fight, hold up a second. We've had a change of the lead. Finley Fitzsimmons has found his way past Adam Merchant. That has just happened off camera. And from what I'm hearing in my ear, it was a mistake for Adam Merchant that has seen Finley Fitzsimmons take that place. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to get a replay of that due to what has happened. But Finley Fitzsimmons right now is back in the lead, and Adam Merchant's going to try and come back at him. So Fitzsimmons has found his way on through. And it is due to what has been a small off-track there for Adam Merchant. Can he get the place back now before all is said and done? Well, we're not too far away from finding out here, because we have only got what is another 3 laps, including this one, to go. And, well, as our drivers continue to barrel on here, right now for Adam Merchant, he's just trying to keep it all together. But, yes, we've had it confirmed. It was off-track, and in the end, hold up a second, Adam Merchant going a bit slowly there as he went all in, and Fitzsimmons taking the place back off him again. And right now, Adam Merchant, well, is it all falling apart here? We're not 100% certain, but one thing that is for certain is that Merchant's trying to throw everything back at this. And, well, I think about time is running out as he roars and rips his way around this circuit. But for Adam, at this point, he's got to try and keep his cool and just keep it together that little bit more. But a small mistake has cost Merchant what is the lead of this race. And now, Fitzsimmons, we're just hoping that he can keep it together just for a little bit longer. Albeit, of course, Merchant was the one who gained the upper hand in race number 1. But here it seems like the upper hand's gone the other way. All the fighting between these two. Shahi Zahir, meanwhile, on the back of Austin Thomas. And we're coming on down through what is turns 4 and 5. Well, right now, Zahir still trying to come back. As Felipe Ramos, meanwhile, and Joshua Cronin, they are fighting in towards turn number 1. And Cronin going defensive as Ramos has come on strong in these closing stages. And Cronin, to be fair, he hasn't had the pace, but the consistency has been absolutely paramount. And that's what's enabled Cronin to be in such a strong position. Down towards the braking zone, they come in towards turn number 4, and here comes Ramos on the inside. I think it's going to be a classic move. Does he get it stopped in time? Runs a little bit deep, but he'll get away with that, and that's going to give Cronin the opportunity to come back at him. Up the hill in towards turn 6 and 7. Cronin on the outside here. Ramos will go defensive, and Cronin in the end, he's going to try and go all the way around the outside to turn number 8. On such a wide circumference, I think that's going to be it in that battle, and Ramos does move to the final points paying position of 12th place for this race. But from them, back to your leader we come. He's catching up to this group just now. And Adam Merchant is falling away little by little. And for Merchant, the gap has got up to 1.2 seconds already. Has Adam got a problem with the car? That might be why the thought process is here. Because it does seem as though for Adam Merchant, at the moment at least, suddenly all the pace has fallen away. Has he not fueled enough potentially? I wonder where he's having to fuel save a lot right now, because Elliot Cawte is catching at an incredibly quick rate of knots versus Merchant. And in fact, on the last lap, Elliot Cawte was a whole second faster by comparison comparison. And Adam Merchant's into the pits. Merchant is coming in. I don't think he's had the fuel. I think that's what's gone wrong for Merchant. Is it going to be a splash and dash here as he makes his way on down the pit lane? Alternatively, has he picked up a black flag that we're not aware of? Was he makes his way on down? In fact, we just had it confirmed. It is a drive-through penalty for Adam Merchant. Now, is it because of an off-track? Is it because of contact? Well, either way for Merchant, it has gone so very wrong. And was he makes his way onwards right now for Adam Merchant? It is going to be a race that has fallen apart. There's something that has happened. We believe it wasn't off track when he was passed by Fitzsimmons, but we're not 100% certain of it. Sadly, we can't get the replay of it, but what we can see is that Finley Fitzsimmons right now essentially has an open door here as Elliot Cawte has moved up into second and Merchant has fallen to third. Well, what a late twist in the tail. We may be able to get you a replay of what happened very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, after the race is complete to explain, but Finley Fitzsimmons right now definitely looking in control for what is this final lap, and as he's already got what is a couple more quarters to go, well, right now it's not quite going to be a 1-2 for MSR Purple, but indeed it'll be a very happy end to the day for Fitzsimmons, who needed the win to counteract what happened in the sprint. And Elliot Cawte here right now has made his way all the way through from what's the back of the field in race 1 to second place. But meanwhile, as the checker flag waves for Finley Fitzsimmons, it's a win here in the feature race today. He's earned it the hard way in the number 16, and Elliot Cawte will come on through for the DDK Racing team and start from the back of the grid in race 1. He's made his way to the podium in race number 2, and Adam Merchant in the end, well, despite the drive-through penalty, rounds off the podium there ahead of Elliot Rolls. And for the DDK Racing team, it's a second and fourth. It's a huge score of points as number 5 driver comes on home ahead of Leo Delmas, who makes it to the top 5 at the end. Fabian Sanchez will be 2.5 seconds behind in 6th place, and then we will have 20 seconds back. But to be fair to him, for Austin Thomas, it may not be a podium, it may not be a win, it may not be even a top 5, but what a drive from Thomas today to take 7th place given the level of competition. As he comes on home then and sees his checker flag, and behind him by 1.8 seconds will be Shahi Zahair in 8th place ahead of Nick Peterson, who will very shortly make his way to the line in 9th, and then it will be Johnston Bra who has got Gareth McAllister close behind him. And McAllister, does he pip him at the finish? I think McAllister has. I think he's just outrun him in the photo finish to the degree of what is 100th between the two of them, and then it will be in fact 1,000th there as I'm hearing in my ear. Johnston Bra will take best of the rest spot in 11th place, and they will be your last lead lap finishers, head of Felipe Ramos, Joshua Cronin, Arturo Mayorga, and then it'll be Renaissano rounds of that top 15. But as our drivers cool on down, ladies and gentlemen, well, what a race it has been. And in fact, what we're going to do, we're going to look to the scenic view, we're going to take a look at those race results, and then we, I believe, are going to be getting a replay of what exactly happened right at the end in that battle for the lead. So here are your provisional results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and Finley Fitzsimmons in the end for MSR Purple taking that win in his close-knit battle with Adam Merchant. And what a win it was for the MSR Purple driver after losing out in the battle in race number 1, having to settle for second. Here in race number 2, he was able to bring home the lion's share of the points. DDK Racing's Elliot Cawte, he roared his way through to a third, but was given a second in the end with a drive-through penalty for Adam Merchant, and he'll be pleased in the number 1 to establish some huge points here in the feature race, and also have done so well in recovering in the sprint. And Adam Merchant there for Squid Gang Racing completing at the podium there, well, I suspect a degree of frustration overcoming what was looking to be back-to-back victories here today. The Scotsman of DDK Racing's Elliot Rolls was 4th in the end, not too far away from the podium, and was really the best of the rest. 2 seconds ahead of Leo Delmas for Rodent Racing. And then we did see Fabian Sanchez in the end in 6th place there for Squid Gang Racing, not quite able to stay with Leo Delmas in the closing stages. Austin Thomas, he was then a further, what was almost 20 seconds behind, but to him that won't matter, because to him he really was the leader of the rest of the top 10 in 7th place at MSR Green, head of Shahi Zahair for Arrive and Drive Racing, who enjoyed a great battle with Thomas as he did with his own teammate Nick Peterson. And in the end, commiserations for Shea Buffett was also in that fight, but sadly had to come on home in 20th place. Well, what a race it was between them all, no doubt about it. And Peterson in 9th place despite that huge contact with Buffett. And then we did see a further 3 seconds down. Gareth McAllister for INCA Chips, who round off your top 10, just ahead of Johnston Bra. In the end, at the finish line, the two of them were separated, as I've been told, by only what was a grand total of 13 thousandths at the finish. My goodness, how close was it in that finish? But the INCA Chips driver overcoming the privateer. And then it was Felipe Ramos, who was in 12th for INCA Queso, a lap down. And it was the same same for Joshua Cronin for Team Boats, who enjoyed a very solid drive, to be fair. Not the fastest, but on his debut, he needs to see the positives for this one, which was he was very consistent, and that's why he almost picked up his first points in the feature race. Arturo Mayorga took 14th in the end for INCA Chips ahead of Renison Lowe, with the Team Boat strike complete in the top 15 ahead of Sergey Proc, Matt Strong, Jace Mayer, and in 2 laps down, it was Antonio Bianchi in 19th place for INCA X51C, and 4 laps down, but still classified as a finisher, Shea Braffett in 20th place for DDK with TH Jordan. Outside that top 20, we did also see difficulties for Aaron Gessler, who did have to retire, alongside Robert Nobles, Cameron Nix, Ryan Thibault, Ricardo Espino, Carlos Balanas, and Xavier Sainav, who was, unfortunately, the victim of some major contact on the opening lap. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the finishing order, and we will be right back in about what will be a minute's time, because we are getting the replay footage together as to what happened in the battle for the win between Finley Fitzsimmons and Adam Merchant. So stay with us, we'll have that footage to you very shortly. And ladies and gentlemen, here was that battle in the end on lap number 27 with Finley Fitzsimmons and Adam Merchant going toe-to-toe. Fitzsimmons was the second place man for MSR Purple chasing Merchant, but goodness me, what exactly happened then? So coming through the Cover del Sol, Fitzsimmons had a great run here. Merchant immediately had to go defensive and making the way down towards turn number 4. Fitzsimmons looked around the outside. This is much like the sprint race, and in the end, a run wide there from Fitzsimmons, but no contact by looks things this time. And then they were 2 wide all the way up the hill, and were a bit of a tap between the two of them, heading in towards turn 6 and 7. They were 2 wide all the way through, and Fitzsimmons in the end did get ahead, but did Merchant try and come back at him here? Yes, he did, but in the end, too far back in towards turn number 8, and I think that was the end of their battle, and Merchant in the end falling backwards. A tiny tap between the two of them. That definitely would have been registered as a 4x or a 4 times instant point contact, and I suspect the slight off track then that Adam Merchant had afterwards, he got slightly sideways there coming out of turn number 10, that may have just pushed him over the instant point limit, if not the contact, and I think that explains what we then subsequently saw with Adam Merchant gradually falling away. We do apologise for missing it live, but still, we managed to catch it in the end on the replay footage. But what a battle between the two of them, and indeed 2 absolute stars today. Nothing can be taken away from them in the epic battles of the wins in both races. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. So, with that, what an incredible round of racing here today at the Interlagos circuit in round number 3. Battles are plenty up and down the field, and a huge thank you to you for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the League Zero Formula Series, and in terms of how you can perhaps even get on the grid as of our upcoming rounds in Season 17, well, for all that and more, do head to our official website, and that's at www.leaguezero.net, where you'll find all the information you need to get yourself on the grid and go green flag racing with us. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our title sponsor, who has helped make sure that our premier Formula Racing Series has been able to be brought to life week in, week out. And that, of course, is INCA Salsa. Now, if you are a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than INCA Salsa. Containing only the freshest ingredients, no gluten and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should, once you've had a taste of incredible family recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you will never want to taste any of the rest. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you will ever have, head to INCA Salsa's official website at shop-inca-salsa.myshopify.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we also need to say a thank you to our other series partners and sponsors, who do include, of course, MSR Performance Engineering and Team Goon Squad. And as we now look ahead to next time, well, if Interlagos was a classic open wheel racing circuit for our drivers in round number 3, well, now it's time for something a little bit unconventional, because in round number 4, In a week's time, we'll be making our way back to the US of A, but heading to the ultimate rollercoaster ride of road racing. That's the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta, a circuit not normally associated with the highest tiers of open wheel racing. With its heavy undulations and 2.54 mile length, it is going to be a circuit where all the drivers will need to combat the right to be right on the limit, because beyond it they'll be in the grass, but behind it they will be slow, and on the tarmac it will be easy to pass. But who exactly will demonstrate their credentials at what will be the Road Atlanta circuit in a week's time? We'll find out then. But until then, we have been the League Zero Formula Series. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.